two, hello. Two. Check two, hello. Folks, hello. Folks. What is up? It's me. It's Rob. It's Rob. Your old pal. Good old Rob, etc. Friday Rob. I'm getting a little bit of a late start again. This whole thing, I had a whole plan, right, to get started earlier. You know, what, 11:30, 12 at the latest, I think I was saying, and that has not happened. That has not happened. I was just at the last minute trying to get a few things together here. We got a couple new emotes, and I like... Lodan, I know I shouldn't be doing this live, and I understand that. The one that you have as TRRS Pog, do you think that should that be the name? Should it be like laugh or smile? Do you want to keep it Pog? Do you know what I'm referring to? Because I got that one ready to go as well. There's one or two more that I need to resize. Because they're not square. I think this one could just be TRRS laugh, because it's not really a pog face, but it's like a joyous revolutionary laughter. What do you think about that? It could be hype as well, yeah. That's good. I like that. Okay, that one's in as well. And like the Kathleen one, I think is really cool, but also I don't want to I thought it should be TRRS rifle or TRRS something like that, but I don't know if that's maybe something that would get people mad. I went with TRRS Kathleen, so it's as innocuous as possible. It kind of feels like it should be maybe something more descriptive, but I was running out of time and I couldn't think about it too much. Bang is good. Yeah. I think I'll keep it like that for now, and then maybe we'll reevaluate. Anyway, a couple new things that I put off for Wednesday. We do have some new emotes. We got some new emotes. We got bit badges. I think we should have bit badges now. Unless I uploaded those to the wrong place. We should have bit badges. I don't see them anywhere in the chat right now. And I did put a new alert.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Lockthar, thanks for a tier 1 sub, brand new community member. Thank you, Lockthar. I appreciate that. Yeah, I put a bit badge, but just as I was going live, I saw that there was other places where you could upload those, so I didn't know if I messed it up. And there is new alert. Now, getting a sub for my birthday. Well, luck there. Thank you very much. And is it your birthday today? Happy birthday. That's wonderful. I'm happy to hear that. Oh, Vlad the Victor's got a bit badge. There you go. Nice. After you talked about your music, I went on a nostalgic drive to some of my own instrumental acoustic folk punk music from a decade ago. If you ever wanted to use any of it, it's all free to download it. We'd all love to listen to it. For sure. And there is a new alert. Now, yesterday, because I was not expecting this is I put a new alert for 20 gifted subs. And the whole thing, like a 20 gift sub, I think that's happened maybe twice in the 3 years of doing the show. I'm not expecting it to happen a lot. Now, yesterday I previewed the alert because someone actually gifted 20 subs yesterday miraculously. So I previewed the alert so there would be some kind of a special thing. But I don't want to like misrepresent anything. I had used a certain audio clip in the makeshift alert I did yesterday. And when it came down to decision time, I don't know if I wanted to use that permanently for the sound alert. As funny as it is. So I put something different, so maybe it's not as exciting as the one I previewed yesterday. Maybe it's not quite as exciting. I still think it's funny and a good alert, so I didn't use the DP clip. No, I did not. Maybe I can. I don't know. I just felt like I'm gonna be like talking to something. I'm trying to do something important one day, and someone's gonna play that. Like maybe it's not good to give people that power to play that clip at any time. Maybe it's not a good idea. You may not take it to the bank. Yeah, maybe I can put it for 50 or something. Like, because that's a lot. Like it probably will never be used at that point. Right now, there is a new alert, a 20 sub alert. It's not the same one that I played yesterday. It's still a very good alert though. Maybe we'll never see it. I don't know. We probably won't. We will probably never see it. But just in case, there is another alert. Okay, so we got bit badges, we got a couple new emotes. I've given you access to the alert, exactly. Whether you choose to use that is up to you. What was the alert sound from yesterday? I don't want to break the news for us. It was a crass sexual innuendo. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It was a crass sexual innuendo. So I changed it to something that's still funny, but is not quite as crass and graphic. It's weird, Lodane. Like I see your bit badge in the chat, but not like the one that goes onto the screen. I don't know why that is. Anyway, we're getting there. We're getting some different updates. Season 4, we got some.
You can count on stuff me. Happening. And have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Howdy, comrades. Howdy, Rob. From the river to the sea.
Hello, Praxid. Thanks for 19 months. From the river to the sea. Absolutely. Thank you, Praxid. Thank you, Globo Cup. I'm going to save this link for later. Or we can put it on right now with everyone watching and listening. That's my favorite thing when it comes to music. I'm going to get just a Coke. One sec here. Oh, there's one right here. There's one right here. I already... Thank you, Rob, from a few minutes ago. I was getting a little treat from my past self. Chin chin. Yeah, well, we can get to the, we can talk about what just dropped. Give me a few minutes to wake my brain up here. We'll have just a more brief chit chat zone than usual. While I get my synapses firing here, get some caffeine into my system, get my synapses firing. Okay, Lodan, I'm glad you're happy. I'm sorry that it took me so long to upload these emotes. Again, one of those things, and I know you know what I'm talking about, one of those easy things that takes no time at all to do, that becomes some...
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Oh, no. Because it's a non. Because it's a non, it didn't work.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I'll do it manually, okay? Anon, I appreciate that. We will do the alert
Rob
manually.
To talk you through all this.
Okay? Thank you, Anon.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
That's very,
to
very
talk
kind
you
of
through
you.
all this.
Whatever the brave hero
you can count on me.
that just did that. There's no way. When it's Anon, it doesn't trigger the alerts. I don't think there's any way to fix that.
You can count on me.
It is going to do it 20
good old
times.
Rob
Yes.
To talk you through all this.
I think we can pause those. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trigger the alert manually. Okay? This is for Anon. Can I just stop these?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Whoever just donated 20 subs, that's very kind of you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
You want to keep your identity anonymous. Very, very Christ-like. That unfortunately does not trigger the alert properly, but I will do it myself.
Talk you through all this. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And this is going to stop any moment now.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Any moment now.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Just a few more moments.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
How many is this? Good Lord.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I think there's just one more after this.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Okay. Here we go. So, because this didn't work because of an anonymous subscription... Here we go. Look at me, I'm Mr. Newsman. I'm such a big deal. Everyone come to me for knowledge. Come to Mr. Newsman.
This is a test.
That was Anon, that was for you. Whoever you are, Anon, I really appreciate the 20 gifted subs. That's so kind of you. The DP, that's the whole thing, Moss, is I regret it. I was like, there's no way I can, now that I've shown that, I can make it something else. It's going to be funny, but it's nowhere near going to be as funny.
Of the friendship triangle.
But ultimately, I was like, I just don't know about this. We want one more? We want one more? Anon, once again, this is for you. Look at me, I'm Mr. Newsman. I'm such a big deal. Everyone come to me for knowledge.
Come to Mr. Newsman.
I'm wearing the exact same outfit, and my hair
This
looks
is a
almost
test.
the exact same as well. And Klobocop, thanks for the 5 gifted subs as well. That's really kind of you, Klobocop. Thank you. Wow. People do love Easter eggs, I guess. Yeah. Maybe I'll set that one up for 50. Like if someone really, really wants to purchase, like, to play that alert, to play that sound when I'm live and probably trying to talk about something serious, I guess I can give people that ability. I think that one's pretty good, though. Okay. Well, what a start. What a start to the show. Oh, but I'm flustered. I'm flustered now. Just trying to think of anything to, like, what's going on to talk about. I'm not sure what's funny. The notifications are making you wait for 20 single notifications. I didn't see that there's a way to, like, skip those. Filling out my timesheet with Rob with a smile on my face. I love it. That's wonderful. I like that you can choose from any of the bit badges you've already earned, which is why I made the 1 bit badge a good old DC. Okay, so you can choose different ones. Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah, that's cool. Finishing slubs before group chat is over. That's got to be some sort of record. Well, that's what, when I make new alerts, people want to see it. I don't know. People want to press the little button and cause a little animation on the screen on the show that they're looking at. I guess. That's my understanding of how this works, like, psychologically anyways. I don't know. Push button until brain go burr. You get a little dopamine thing, I guess. And I get it as well. And we all do. It's wonderful. We could watch the Nasrallah speech after group chat. I mean, I don't know if we should sit there and watch the whole thing or if I should just read a recap. You know? Because he goes on for quite a long time. And I'm not, like, it was definitely very interesting. I'm not sure that it was quite as exciting as maybe we were thinking that it might be. All the Marvel style teaser trailers were leading us to believe. You know? He was making us wait and wait and wait. We were expecting something kind of, like, really crazy, and it was kind of just like, okay. It's interesting. It's definitely worth breaking down and talking about. Absolutely. There is no big earth-shattering announcement, though. The teaser trailers were very good. Dude dropping a charge on a tank was definitely cool, though. Fucking incredible. Some of the most incredible scenes. I totally remember Pinky Doll. I was watching from the clip from the show and I was looking at it the other day and it felt like a lifetime ago. It's always alarming how reasonable foreign leaders sound in comparison to the West. Yeah, especially people that get framed as being like terrifying extremist terrorists, you know? And then you hear them speak and they're like, oh, this is just like a dude. It's just like a normal guy. This is just like a normal speech. And yet way more reasonable than a lot of fucking total psychos in the West and what they're saying. Imagine popping that tank and then getting a shout out from the leader of Hezbollah. It shows as well that like these like the Israelis that are driving these tanks too, it's like they're not getting out. Like they're terrified. You're letting a guy walk right up to your tank and just blow your shit up? It's like, what are you doing? You're the ones that have the army. You're supposed to be... We're here non-stop with the brave IDF and their unbelievable fighting skills and like all their just the moral army and all the stuff that we hear. And then it's just like... All they know how to do is drive around tanks and maim little kids. Like that's the only thing that they seem to be good at. No infantry support. Yeah, it's like because they're fucking scared. I would have simply utilized Krav Maga against the terrorists. Yeah, exactly. Get out and use your superior hand-to-hand fighting skills. I learned a long time ago that terrorist and soldier are 100% subjective, and the difference is usually if you're operating for your people versus operating for a very moneyed corporate interest that could seemingly hire any government's army. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. It's like who you're working for, but it's also just like the tactics. Like I think definitionally, like if you look in the dictionary about terrorism, it's like intentionally targeting innocent civilians in order to spread fear and terror and spread your ideology, which is literally exactly what the IDF is currently doing right now in Gaza, like word for word, or what the United States military was doing throughout the war on terror with their drone program, you know? So it's not only about power, but it's about tactics as well, deliberately targeting civilians to spread fear and terror, and that's exactly what the IDF has been doing. It's exactly what the U.S. military does constantly. Guerrilla tactics are required out of necessity. The things said about the opposing army are both bad. One is a bigger mouthpiece. Yeah. And I mean, it's just been fascinating to see that footage, too. And you realize as well, you see these guys come popping out of tunnels, putting charges on these tanks, and then ducking down, blowing them up, and then going back into the tunnels. It's like, that's why the IDF will never win. Like, you can't defeat that. If you have a motivated people that are willing to wage that kind of like guerrilla style warfare on an invading or a colonizing army that are not from there, that are not defending their homeland as much as they tell themselves they are, you just can't win. You can't. Maybe it won't be like it won't happen in a year. It won't happen in 5 years. Sometimes it doesn't happen in 10 years or longer. But like you can't win against that. We've seen that in history just over and over and over and over again. A determined insurgent guerrilla army, just so like you can't defeat that. Yeah, seriously, Marty. Applying that situation to Vietnam and what that must have been like in those densely wooded regions. No wonder the troops started blowing up their generals. It must have been terrifying. Imagine being like a stoned 18-year-old just like going through the jungle in that situation. Good Lord, this talks about the worst thing I can imagine. Fucking awful. And also knowing that you would deserve it. You would, if you do get killed in that situation, you 100% deserve it, even if you didn't want to be there. I remember learning about how ruthless and unchivalrous the guerrilla forces of Cuba were, and I remember thinking how dirty and dishonorable it all sounded. Now I feel pride when I think about what they accomplished with so little. It's for sure, it's like an incredible accomplishment. It's a historic accomplishment. Anytime that's been as successful, especially in Vietnam as well. No, we haven't watched Apocalypse Now in the Discord. It would actually be good to do like a whole Vietnam programming movie night thing in the Discord, maybe around the anniversary of the liberation of Saigon or something. You Full Metal Jacket, Platoon, Apocalypse Now, Maybe Jacob's Ladder would be good. I don't think I've even seen that one. Jaken's Ladder, according to Sam. Jaken. Deer Hunter? I've never seen that either. I've never seen Deer Hunter. I keep seeing it on Plex and like other things, and I've seen it on Amazon Prime, and I want to watch it, but it's like I just haven't had the motivation to sit down. But yeah, it's long. Like I want to see it, but it's just like I know for sure it's going to take me probably 2 to 3 nights to watch the whole thing. Anyway, that could be something we could do in the future, in future months. Platoon would be very good. Yeah, good call, Marty. We'll circle back on that. We're gonna circle back on that. Oh, I love The Descent, Sam. It's interesting because I watched The Birds, the Hitchcock film, The Birds. I've never seen Platoon or Apocalypse Now. Oh my, Marty. Oh my. I watched The Birds on Halloween, and I just finished that last night. I didn't catch the end. And I was talking about how I'm starting to do my Letterboxd stuff now. I'm going to try and log and review all the films that I watch. I'm trying to go back through the last couple of months and log out all the movies that I've watched, because I've watched a lot of movies. So I rewatched The Birds, and it's really an all-time classic in the genre of films that start off as one thing, and you kind of think that it's one thing if you don't know anything about it, and then it totally switches gears midway through to something completely different, almost a totally like a different genre. And The Descent is kind of a great example of that. I love The Descent. If you know nothing about The Descent, you kind of think it's like a journey of self-discovery, and like these women that have this really kind of interesting and fragile personal dynamic. Like, it could have just been a movie about these women, spelunking together and going and, learning things about themselves and each other. But then midway through, you're just like, oh, fuck, Jesus, what is this? What's going on here? The Birds is really cool. It's really, really cool. And like, what is it? I think it's like 67. Some really interesting like early visual effects in that to bring it to life, including the use of like real birds to like create these crazy scenes. And it's great. It's it's almost an hour of the movie. It's about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's almost like you think it's like a rom-com or like kind of a legal tinged dramedy, basically. But it's really good also. The two leads are really charismatic. They have this chemistry that you really buy into. And meanwhile, Hitchcock's just like slowly ratcheting up the tension for like the first 45 minutes or an hour and hinting at what's to come. And then it just totally shifts gears to this like total fucking nightmare situation. Yeah, it seems like some weird love triangle, exactly. It's really cool. I love that kind of stuff. My mom too hates birds her whole life since watching that. I think they say in the movie, like, there's really a lot of birds out there. You don't really realize that there's like a insanely huge number of birds around the world, and even in your own community. And that seemed to be the birds in that movie are just like, we can fuck you up at any time. I'm just re-saying some of the things that I wrote in my review of it, but the birds are all just like, we can fuck you up at absolutely any time, and just every single day we're just choosing not to do that. What's this mirror sequence everyone is dunking on in Moon Knight? I don't know. I didn't watch that one. I've just given up on any of that Marvel stuff. There's just too much stuff. Very underrated Hitchcock is The Trouble with Harry, his murder comedy. Hitchcock's a bit of I love movies, but Hitchcock is kind of somewhat of a blind spot for me. That reminds me, remember Fox brought on the birds are fake guys and took it 100% seriously? Not really, no. Not really. Yeah, I think it's something that I need to explore way more, Lodane. The rest of his sort of filmography. What's up, Diego? Hello. We're about ready to get into talking about serious business here. Just about. I wonder if there's a way. I'm just wondering if there's a way to make it so you can anonymously gift a number of subs and trigger the alert. I don't know why that it's like that. There doesn't seem to be an option to change that. Kind of strange. That would be great, Lodane. I would love to do that. Okay, so should we watch this whole Nasrallah speech? Like, what say you, chat? What say you? Should we watch this whole speech? Should we just look at some of the... I mean, there's Al Jazeera analysis of it.
Border and these...
And we must remain...
Like, it is quite long. It's like over an hour. What is the speech about specifically? Well, like Lodane, like Nasrallah has been saying for now, like has been remarkably silent, and everyone's been kind of waiting for what Hezbollah is going to say, and they've been dropping these like teaser trailers for it, and everyone's getting all hyped up and thinking there's going to be some earth-shattering announcement, and then he spoke today for like an hour, and it's definitely very interesting. But like, I don't think it's really worth sitting here for the next hour and watching the entire speech when we can just kind of look at and sort of analysis about it. I think that's probably a better way to go about it. Excuse me. I think we already looked at the teasers. We looked at one of the teasers yesterday, and we looked at them when they were over the course of the week. Let me just see what I can find here. There's yet another missile attack, which hit the front gate of the Al Shifa hospital. That was from 2 hours ago. Yet another, the moral army who would never dream of bombing a hospital. Has bombed yet another hospital and targeted a ambulance procession that was bringing civilians to the hospital. This is a pretty detailed thread of the speech. Okay, well, let's look at that. What I'll do is I'll put on the speech so we have something visual just playing on the screen.
Border and the
And we can just look at that. And then we can talk about that and see what's up next after that. Thank you, Catalepsy Kills. I'm doing great. You know, one thing like that I've been so reminded of over the last couple of weeks that I've not lost sight of, I think, you know, I was maybe having a couple days where I was having a hard time processing the constant stream of horror that we were seeing, but just like the thing that I've been the most thinking about over the last couple of weeks is just how lucky I am and how comfortable I am, you know? That's something that I've been reminded of more than ever. You know, I'm spending time with my son. You know, my life is great. My life is very, very comfortable. And I've been more aware of that than ever. I've tried to always be aware of that, but like, especially in light of the nonstop stream of horrendous stuff that we've been seeing coming from Gaza, and just thinking about the desperation, not just right now, but all the time. People that have lived in that situation now for their whole lives, you know. I've been really trying to remember that constantly and not feel fucking sorry for myself because I'm sitting here in my comfortable place and talking about the violence and seeing images of the horror, you know. I'm not gonna feel sorry for myself or start kind of centering my own feelings of that when there's people that are actually going through that and experiencing it. You know, I'm doing very well. I'm very, very comfortable, and I'm safe, and my son is safe and has a nice life. You know, that's something that I have been constantly reminded of over the last couple of weeks. For sure, up the Reds. I feel the same way when I think about working with the immigrants in the detention center and how fortunate I am. It's my self-care, and that's not to say too that people living around here don't go through hard things as well. But it's like, that's also at the same time sometimes unhelpful when like you're going through something bad in your own life and someone says like, well, at least you're not living in Gaza, or at least you're not, you know, you're comfortable. And like that is true. Absolutely. It doesn't mean that when you're going through difficult times in your life that the pain that you're experiencing is less intense just because people around the world are experiencing something worse. But that's been my main thought over the last couple of weeks. That we've been talking about this. I'm very, very cognizant of my own privilege that I have and my own comfort that I have to be able to live in kind of like in where I do, and to not have to worry to the same extent, to anywhere near the same extent about the kind of like, it's unfathomable to me to think about, you know, anybody living in that situation, especially kids, especially people with kids, and trying to protect your family and knowing that you can't, you know, it's horrible to think about. So do we want the teaser trailer before? Again, if I just write teaser, trying to find those. With them, it's so funny. Like, this is, it's hard not to laugh about this. It's so good. I want to see the one we looked at it the other day, but I want to see the one that's in the bar, like showing all the people in the bar freaking out. This one's all messed up. It'd be great. Yeah. It's funny to think of like the Hezbollah video editor, like putting this together, like getting all the bwam, like Christopher Nolan sound effects and stuff. These insurgents have left-wing audio problems too. That's right. Anyway, so let's look. This whole speech is like over an hour long. It is very interesting. It's not quite as exciting as what the hype packages led us to believe, but it's definitely worth talking about. So this is the first point. He talks about this operation, October 7th, Al-Aqsa flood was 100% Palestinian in decision, kept away even from the resistance axis. This is Palestinians' battle and has nothing to do with any regional issues or global dynamics. It's purely Palestinian. The decision of the resistance movements are their own, not that of Iran, which supports them. So number one, distancing themselves from being involved in planning this operation at all. There's been a lot of speculation about that, like from Wall Street Journal, I remember pointed this out, which was walked back kind of, or people was kind of debunked that. And so he says right off the bat, like, this was not us. This was Palestinians that planned this whole operation. Israel was hit by an earthquake and was teetering. Let me see if I can find. There was another thread that I think was good about this. Hold on. Let me just give me 1 sec, please. Here. Let me see if I can find. There was someone that kind of transcribed the whole thing. And I'm just looking for that. And I should find it any moment now. This is great content. Love this. Okay, so he says the battle against Zionists is the most legitimate one there is today from a humanitarian, ethical, and religious aspect. There's no clearer struggle today in terms of right and wrong. We salute Gaza and its people who are unparalleled in the world today. It says the Al-Aqsa flood operation emerged from the pain and suffering of the Palestinian people since over 75 years. But this suffering particularly increased in the past few years under the extremist, savage, and violent Netanyahu government. He didn't name him, but he called Ben Gvir an idiot for his savage measures against the Palestinian prisoners. One of the direct reasons for this operation was the increase in brutality against the West Bank, new settlements there, and the escalating siege on blockaded Gaza. The international community in the West, including international organizations, remain silent. Given the recent increase in violence and brutality against Palestinians, there was a need for an operation that would rock the status quo. The operation was 100% Palestinian decision and implementation. The operation and its planning were conducted in complete silence and discreet even from all members of the resistance axis. This is a main reason for its astonishing success and achievements. We commend and salute the decision to maintain secrecy in planning. And again, this is a summary of Nasrallah's speech, so we're not going to watch the entire hour-long thing, but just get to the kind of gist of what was said. Yeah, for sure, Deca, dude. He definitely did acknowledge that. The secrecy and discreet planning and execution, even from all members of the resistance axis, proves the resistance groups are the only party that decide their moves and measures without outside interference and dictations. The operation resulted in an earthquake in, quote, Israel at the level of security, morale, and confidence, and will leave its mark on this entity and its future. Whatever Israelis do today, they will never be able to repair what the operation has done. The operation exposed that Israel is definitely weaker than a spider's web. It exposed that the entity is fragile, frail, and weak. The United States rushed with all its officials to save and assist Israelis to regain the control, which so far have failed to do. This event exposed the weakness and fragility and failure of this entity that required U.S. warships and experts to head to the region. I did underestimate how many people would be disappointed by the speech. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that we should be too worried about it. I don't think anyone should be worried. And like that's the thing. It's partially a result of their the hype that they themselves kind of like deliberately stoked, and so I think it led to a lot of kind of speculation. Are they going to declare full-on war against the IDF? Are they going to go? Is this going to be some major escalation? And that's not what it was. Even though it is very interesting for us to talk about and to analyze. The Israelis requested from day one more weapons, $10 billion funding, and the assistance of the collective West. Is this a strong, powerful entity? This operation exposed the reality that it's not. So a lot about the Israel being a paper tiger, you know? I think that's a major crux of this speech. Number one, it was planned and carried out fully by Palestinians without the rest of the resistance axis being aware. Number two, it's exposed both Israel and the U.S. for being weak and paper tigers. Israel was totally caught unawares. They're scrambling to demand more money and more aid from the U.S. And they're responding with this indiscriminate, brutal, violent bombing campaign, which is not something that a strong and confident people do. The best move for Iran is to stand by and watch the U.S. collapse on itself. Anything else will be a pretext. And that's true, and like that's understandable as well. I think the difficulty is that there's people in Gaza that are dying right now. But I think that's a big part of the speech too. Is like he's saying that like there needs to be a ceasefire. Israel has to stop killing people in Gaza. Like that's kind of what he's saying as well. To the going to Hezbollah going to the left of Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. That's good. So the Israelis requested from day one more weapons, $10 billion funding, and the assistance of the collective West. Is this a strong, powerful entity? The operation exposed the reality that it's not. The operation founded a historic phase in the struggle against the occupation entity, even on the level of the people of the region. There was no other option, and thus all sacrifices were worth conducting the operation. The Israeli entity at the beginning of the operation was shocked, distracted, and in a state of confusion, anger, and craze. This led to them massacring their own settlers when they went to take back the settlements in Gaza envelope. And again, that's not Hamas saying that. That's not Nasrallah or anyone in Hezbollah saying that. That kind of narrative about the IDF massacring their own settlers, that's being described on Israeli state media. Like, that's where those stories are coming from. Survivors of this music festival and survivors of these kibbutzes who have told a very different story than this kind of like narrative of just totally one-sided, random, indiscriminate violence that was kind of told to us on October 7th. It seems Israelis are not taking lessons from previous experiences in their fight with the resistance factions in Palestine and Lebanon. One of the main faults Israelis commit is declaring high objectives of their wars which they cannot achieve or attain. Announcing a war objective of ending Hamas and its capabilities was a stupid goal which they will never reach. During the war on Lebanon, Israelis stated an objective to free the captives in a war. They failed and at last were forced to negotiate. This will be the same today in Palestine. What's happening in Gaza exposes the Israeli stupidity and failure. Today, Israelis are massacring civilians in Gaza, including women and children, destroying residential neighborhoods and homes. This does not reflect a powerful army. Any army with some weapons can do this. In 30 days of war, Israel did not make one achievement. So again, going back to that kind of motif of like, this is not a powerful army. This is not a powerful people, a stable entity. You know, a powerful army wouldn't, anyone can do this. Anyone can bomb, anyone with a few weapons can bomb women and kids in residential buildings. Palestinian fighters are valiantly planting bombs at a Merkava tank in Gaza. How can Israel defeat such fighters? No matter the massacres, Israelis will never reach any results and outcomes. The U.S. is directly involved in the massacres in Gaza, and then framing it as as an imperialist war, right? Not even blaming Israel, not even saying this is about destroying Israel or anything about Jewish people. He's like, this is the U.S. This is the U.S. behind this. You see, like a lot of these kind of Western anti-Semites, they think it's the opposite. They think Israel is like pulling the strings in Canada or the U.S. And certainly they do lobbying and they do other things, but like really it's the reverse. It's the U.S. that has the power in that dynamic. Like we were saying yesterday, the U.S. is the mafia boss. Israel is their like fucking crazy henchman. They're crazy violent gangster that's under their control. The U.S. is directly involved in the massacres in Gaza, also collective West in covering the Israeli savage crimes. The U.S. is the party fully responsible for the war on Gaza. Israelis are just a tool. This proves again that the U.S. is the great Satan and must be punished. And once again, where's the lie? Where's the lie? Yeah, like you say, Dakanoon, I'm posting graphics of all the Jewish people in the administration or in the news. Like this is the tricky part about talking about this right now. As much as there's like Zionists that are like weaponizing Jewish identity and weaponizing the trauma of the Holocaust to do this whole thing of like, oh, I feel so scared and unsafe right now because there's like pro-Palestine protest. And like we need to push back on that. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't push back on that, but no one should get this idea that like anti-Semitism is not rising because they're talking about people writing "Free Palestine" on a bridge or whatever, which is not anti-Semitic, but it is like empowering actual anti-Semites that are getting this message out there, that are trying to say that our media and our political system is controlled by Jews. They're using this moment, and ironically, it's Israel contributing to this more than anybody. The place that claims they're there to keep Jews safe, they're making Jews less safe by promoting this kind of thing and encouraging this kind of thing. So we do need to like push back on this idea about people on, college campuses feeling unsafe because people are protesting for Palestine. But we also do need to be aware that there's actual anti-Semites and neo-Nazis that are using this moment to try and push their agenda. Yeah, then we're supposed to rally around the likes of Jackson Hinkle. Jackson Igloo is the number one biggest Twitter account right now in terms of engagement, which again doesn't happen just by chance. You know, that's not just by chance. He's getting put into that position very specifically. AIPAC was trending on Twitter last night, but it was just a cesspool of right-wing Jews control everything bullshit. And this is what I mean. There's so much legitimate criticism that we can and should be making about AIPAC and these kinds of like reactionary Zionist organizations. But again, it's this breeding ground for genuine these reactionary anti-Semites that are getting that message out there. And we need to hold two thoughts in our mind at the same time, where we're cognizant of that, and we're also not going to let ourselves be pushed around by people that are going to use these very bad faith accusations of anti-Semitism in order to shut down any criticism of Israel or support for Palestinians. We're not going to allow that to happen. We're also not going to pretend that anti-Semitism is not a real, genuine issue in our society that's being promoted right now by bad actors in this moment. And that's the crazy thing, Clobocop. I've seen white supremacists protest racially targeting Jews, but the media has only been looking at pro-Palestinian protests as a form of anti-Semitism. It's like we're looking so hard at like this completely nonsense version of anti-Semitism that's about Israel and Zionism, and then they totally ignore the actual like right-wing people who are genuinely going out there and making these kind of anti-Semitic statements. He used to be a weird hanger-on of infrared and John Zerka. Now he has millions of followers, like 30 average viewers on Twitch when he got booted. I mean, he just came out of nowhere, right? He came out of nowhere. He was part of this like anti-nuclear movement. He was part of the Bernie movement. He was part of the post-Parkland gun control movement. And then all of a sudden he switches gears post-Bernie to be American communist, anti-imperialist, and all of a sudden has this huge platform. And now that's just like increased exponentially over the last couple of weeks. It's really weird. And is connected to Tulsi Gabbard as well, who's like a legitimate like PSYOP person. Yeah, some weird AstroTurf BS. He's PM Trio. He's something. He is something. We'll tell you that much. Let me continue this Nasrallah thing. The U.S. full responsibility of the massacres in Gaza was behind the decision of Islamic resistance in Iraq to start the battle against the Americans. Later hours and days will prove that this decision is not limited to Iraq and Syria. This is a battle between right and wrong, between humanity and savagery. Those that are not speaking up against the Israeli massacres must recheck their humanity. The battle in Gaza today is a historical milestone, a decisive moment, and a moment marking a new era. Before the battle is not the same as after it. Operation objectives today are to end the war, the victory of resistance in Gaza, especially Hamas. Some assume that Hezbollah will announce today joining the battle. In fact, Hezbollah joined the battle on October 8th. We knew about the operation as the rest of the world on October 7th and directly started operations the next day. Hezbollah will not suffice to the current operations against Israeli in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah has been engaged in a real battle on the border since October 8th. The only ones aware of the extent and reality of this battle are resistance fighters operating on the southern front lines. After Hezbollah joined, a third of the Israeli army was sent to the border with Lebanon. Half of Israeli naval forces are deployed off coasts of Lebanon and Haifa. Almost half of air defenses are near the Lebanese border. This significantly decreased the pressure on Gaza. The U.S. concerns that this battle might snowball into a wide-scale war or expand to other fronts is a realistic assumption and option. Hezbollah's operations and martyrs in the south conveys to Israelis that starting a war on Lebanon would be their stupidest move. In past few weeks, we received messages and threats that if Hezbollah opens a front in Lebanon, the U.S. warships and jets will target Hezbollah. These threats will not change anything. More operations are to come and will evolve based on developments in Gaza. He says, I say this clearly yet unambiguously. All options on the Lebanese front are there, and we will resort to them at any time. I tell Americans, threats to Hezbollah and regional factions are worthless and won't work. To Americans, Hezbollah already has plans in place for your warships and strike groups in the Mediterranean. Okay, so that's a pretty significant little detail. For all the people that were expecting some major fireworks, that's something, right? To Americans, if you want to prevent a regional war, you must stop the war on Gaza. Your interests, soldiers, and warships will pay the most price of a regional war. We must work toward ending the war on Gaza and the victory of the resistance in Gaza. We will meet soon to celebrate the victory of Gaza, its people, and its resistance. So that's pretty much the summation. So again, like just to recap, pretty much three main themes there. One, this was totally planned by Palestinians. We had nothing to do with it. We learned about it the next day, and our operation began the next day. Number two, Israel and America are paper tigers. They're not behaving like a powerful army right now. They were totally caught unawares. They're weak and scared, and that's why they're mass bombing civilians. Number three, this is America's pulling the strings behind this, and like we see the fact that they're bringing aircraft carriers, and if they do want to expand this into a regional war, we can target that, and we can evolve depending on what happens. And yeah, we're not declaring that we're joining this operation. We did join it the next day, and we're going to continue operating and evolving depending on what changes. So that seems to be the summation. Is it quite as exciting as the teasers were letting us believe? Maybe not. I do think it's interesting to get that perspective. I do think it's relevant as well that it pretty much was as close as you can come to a direct threat that they can target their aircraft carriers and other assets if it comes down to it. I think it lived up to the hype. I think people were expecting some crazy declaration that's gonna we officially want this to be World War III. I don't think that was ever really on the table for that, but still definitely very consequential. I think it shows the fact that these people aren't mindless savages like liberals paint them to be. Well, that's something we talked about, right? It's like, as much as people like Nasrallah or others get framed in the West as being these unhinged extremists and terrorists and savages, when you actually hear them speak, you might not like it, you might not agree with it, but it's like they're saying things that are consequential and substantial, and it's backed up by just a retelling of the reality on the ground, Yeah, if they wanted World War III, 2020 would have gone down differently, exactly, when they went after Soleimani. Strangest non-macho man wrestling promo I've ever seen. Yeah. No, pretty interesting.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Slub.
That's right, Crackety Kraken. Thank you for 33 months of Prime, very kind of you. Slub indeed. Fantastic.
Military operations in every single axis in the territory. They gain control
I'm
in
gonna put on some
Rashid
live
Road, and they
coverage.
have a very main control
If
over
I were world leader,
the
I would simply
movements
say,
of
well, I did
vehicles
not.
on that
You
road.
keep
This road
insisting I called
considered
you
to be the
a
main
stupid
vital
bitch, and now I'm going to
with
agree.
the Salahadi Road, which connects the northern areas with the southern areas of the territory. The
I would like to, I mean,
occupation
there's
has,
just
dropped,
Israeli strikes near
different
3 Gaza
leaflets,
hospitals and
in
ambulance
different
convoy
areas
in
in
a
the
single
north and
day. I mean,
central
there's
areas
just
of the Gaza
footage
Strip,
of total carnage on
informing
Al
people to
Jazeera right now.
evacuate and to displace from the houses and to head forward to the southern areas. Some people had followed the orders of the Israeli occupation and they used the
It's
Rashid
just
Road
absolutely
in order
horrendous.
to be evacuated to the southern areas. Meanwhile, they were bombarded throughout the process of the evacuation on Rashid Road. Now, it's worth mentioning that Israel is controlling this road, and there is also one important domain that everyone must understand is that there is a coastal line, and this coastal line is full of Israeli
Well, there's a video Sinchao, but it's just footage of like dead bodies from these airstrikes.
Full of Israeli military tanks, which
Attacks near medical facilities in Gaza. There's someone with a video with a camera riding a bicycle down a main street with just dozens of corpses lying around. It's absolutely horrendous.
Pass through this road. So people who have been stick to the Israeli instruction to evacuate the houses have been bombarded. Their bodies have been laid on the
Israeli
ground.
military
Even
says it has
ambulance,
encircled
I just
Gaza
heard
City
from
after
one of
troops
the
expanded
ambulance
ground
drivers that
offensive
we
in
just,
northern Gaza.
drive through the dead bodies and we cannot even be able to stop and
Yeah,
to
this
take
video is
them,
absolutely
to
horrific.
the
Like, I
medical
can't even put it on the
hospital.
screen
So
right now.
the situation there on that road is really catastrophic.
The first
as
paragraph of
people
this
are
article
no
tells all you
longer
need to know about
able
ADL and
to
Zionist
be
claims of
evacuated throughout
anti-Semitism.
this road, and specifically with the ongoing running out of the fuel, so they
Oh God. Oh, Dr. Maggot, I don't know how much I can do this. Eve Barlow in Tablet Mag. The social media pogrom. That really, like, you don't even need to read the article. You get the whole. You get the message just from the title. I'll do the first paragraph. I can't punish myself or others. Oh, yeah, because... Okay, so sorry, this isn't new. This is from May 25th, from 2021. I think I remember this. I don't know who crafted the first tweet that simply said, Eve Fartlow, but whoever it was, bot or human, started a fire. Over the past 2 weeks, Twitter has been littered with the words Eve Fartlow. Every time I tweet this title is the response I attract, and it is pelted at me, irrespective of what I write. Hundreds of trolls, some with blue ticks and some without, just start responding to me, Eve Fartlow. Some have recently switched it to Eve Shartlow, but Eve Fartlow seems to be the one that sticks. If we donated a JNF tree to Israel for every time someone tweeted Eve Fartlow, there'd be no Negev left. Like, personally, if I didn't want people to use like a silly name that they had invented for me, I would simply not write an article where I continually said the same name over and over and over and over again. And that's a pogrom, according to her. And listen, it's not nice. I agree. As someone that has been subjected to vile attacks from people online, I get it. It's not pleasant. It's very unpleasant. I'm not going to sit here and compare that to people being like attacked and violated and murdered and victims of a pogrom because of their ethnicity or their religion, because people have said mean things to me. You know, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, and her whole thing was based on a tweet saying that I saw a sign that said free parking and I got scared because of it. You know? That's what people started making fun of, which is a totally justifiable thing to make fun of. Like, I totally understand why people would make fun of that. I saw a sign that said free parking and it was so scary. It made me feel unsafe. That's like my personal Afghanistan was my alcoholic father. Exactly. It's so... And then not understanding why people view that as being insensitive, you know? I've been the victim of a pogrom. Ironically, I never even said Eve Fartlow. I never joined in on any of these things because I knew that it's going to be framed as some like sexism thing, even though it's not. I even had a tweet where I was like, I tried to relate to her, even though I don't like her. I don't like her position. Listen, this is what I said. And she still blocked me for this. She still blocked me. As someone who once developed a severe addiction to getting people to yell at me online, I understand what Eve Barlow is going through right now. And she still blocked me. You just can't win. You can't win. See, I can't look at the tweet. I can't look at the Eve Barlow tweet because she blocked me. Just bring a private tab. Yeah, but then you got to open a new... You got to do a thing because it doesn't... It's complicated. I don't know. I don't want to do it. And I don't care enough to look at what she has to say also. I did everything right and she indicted me. You know? But that's it. It's like it's people like Eve Barlow and that dipshit Columbia professor the other day freaking out about how his kids are being threatened by people saying free Palestine on college campuses. Like they're making people, like it's that's making people take accusations of anti-Semitism less seriously. When you see people using these incredibly bad faith accusations over and over and over of anti-Semitism and accusing Jeremy Corbyn of being anti-Semitic for first supporting Palestine, or accusing, whatever Palestinian march that's going on in your town or your college campus is, it makes me feel safe because they say they have Palestinian flags. It's anti-Semitic to have a Palestinian flag. It makes me feel unsafe. It's anti-Semitic. It makes me feel unsafe when people want to change the hummus brand in the cafeteria. You know? And that makes it so it's like, well, people start to tune out accusations of anti-Semitism because they're being constantly made in this kind of bad faith way. And then when people really come along and say like, yeah, by the way, all of these Jews are controlling our media, or they're controlling our politics. And then it's like they're able to get traction with that kind of thing. They are desperate to have a chilling effect on campuses. I mean, that's what we've been saying since day one, right? It's like they've been trying to... This narrative has been promoted since October 7th about Hamas and exactly what happened on October 7th to make any support of Palestine pro-terror, pro-Hamas. And that's been... You've seen their brains breaking in the media and online and all these other places, in college campuses. It's like, well, we keep telling you that it's supporting terrorism, it's supporting Hamas. Like, why do you still... But the protests are still going on. It's not because it's not working anymore. People are not being swayed by this kind of argument. People are not being swayed by this like, oh, I feel unsafe thing. People are like, I don't care. I'm protesting. We're protesting anyways. I don't care what you say. Like, just look at those women that were tearing down the. I haven't even wanted to look at the footage because like I'm worried about they're getting doxxed or like attacked. They're on the cover of the New York Post or anything. They're taking down those posters and someone's like, stop that. What are you doing? And there's like, fuck you, bitch. Fuck you. Fuck Israel. You know, people are not used to this. People are used to being able to have that kind of like, those accusations land and to be able to like shut down or have this chilling effect on speech. And now they're like not now they're not having any impact with that, and you can tell they're like losing it. The fact that that's not having any impact on people anymore.
Disclosed to the world, drive that population into
Here's
Egypt.
some live Al Jazeera coverage.
The
I'm going to try and I guess just see if
proportionate and necessary.
We start to see bad stuff happening.
7 October. They are neither proportionate,
take it off.
Neither necessary, and Israel, to that extent, is violating international law.
Artie, not for the first time since the beginning of this conflict,
you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
About what international
Too
law
much Hamas
says
money on
and
woke
what is the
college
source of the law
campuses.
and how the events that are unfolding right
Critical
now
mass, thanks
can
for
be
20 months.
qualified under law. But of course, the events continue to happen, and Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip continues to unfold, and we're at now.
Look at the fucking state of that Green Party MP in Germany.
Killed on day 28 of this war. So
saying Muslims there need to speak for Hamas and distance themselves as reheated post 9/11 Islamophobia.
No
it's so
question
loud to
that
me.
it is, but
and I'm sure Paul Mason did think it was great.
In this case, the law is adhered to more in the breach than it is in its adherence, and that's why it's extremely important for the international community to, without delay, issue criminal indictments for those who are responsible for committing war crimes.
Yeah, I know the Green Party
and other core crimes.
What do we even need a Green Party anymore? The Green Party has just been a long-term psychological experiment on what no theory does to an MF, and the experiment has now concluded. We can just do away with the Green Party anymore. We don't need any more Green Parties.
Questioned and legitimacy.
German politicians weren't truly unhinged, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But impunity continues, and that's only.
They fully support Israel's right to punish innocent people in Palestine for their own crimes and their own anti-Semitism.
Not only on the office of the prosecutor, but indeed also domestically. Bring prosecution.
I saw a whole speech by one of these German guys where he spent 7 whole minutes before he even referenced any of the violence against civilians that's happening in Gaza right now.
Contracting parties, that is 194 states, have obligations under the Geneva Conventions to prosecute or extradite those who order or commit grave breaches of the convention, which include the war crimes that we've seen take place today at Ash-Shifa and on al-Rashid. And to the extent they don't do, they're not abiding by their international legal obligations.
Artie, just as you were speaking, a newsline crossed, which I want to expose to you, because this exactly embodies the
ropes into Eden. Sometimes he did.
Whether it's gray, black, or white.
Sometimes he did make a couple of good points, didn't he?
Israeli military,
they did never denazify Germany. I mean, that's the whole point. Sometimes I think we lose sight of that, don't we?
As being used by a Hamas unit, and that a number of Hamas operatives were killed in the strike. Again, we're just getting this information. Israel acknowledging that it hit an ambulance, but Israel also in the same breath saying this was, by the way, a Hamas unit. This has been at the center of what Israel has said since the beginning, is that we're actually, this is Israel speaking, we are actually targeting.
We at ND have created an award-winning mattress. We compress it.
Jesus.
What does international law say about an event like this one?
Sure, it's a good question.
Yeah, I'll fix that block for Monday.
It happens all the time in war, where an attacking party attacks an object that is civilian and therefore not targetable.
Again, it's the exact same, just we talk about Vietnam, the Vietnam allegory. It's the exact same thing.
Military objective. Now, what we know in this case is
if everybody is VC, then you're totally allowed to just kill whoever you want.
Therefore, it is presumptively civilian, and therefore
they're all VC, or they sympathize with the VC. They're hiding the VC.
The burden of proving that there's been an alleged change in the character of an object from civilian to military rests on the attacking party. And absent any evidence that demonstrates, cogent evidence that demonstrates that this change has taken place, the attacking party fails in making their claim. And therefore, the civilian object is continued to be civilian, and it is presumptively a war crime to attack it.
Artie, I'll jump in because to that point, the Israeli military statement says, quote, we have information which demonstrates, you're talking about burden of proof, we have information which demonstrates that Hamas's method of operation is to transfer terror operatives and weapons in ambulances, and we intend to release additional information about that. So in what you were telling us, they will need to prove that, right? Right now they're saying it, but they need to prove it.
Well, indeed, and based on what you've described, that's a general statement. That is to say, they're suggesting, and of course I'm only going on what you've just described to me, but they're suggesting that it is a general policy of Hamas to abuse, civilian objects like ambulances to carry out their operations. But no, that's not enough. The attacking party needs to demonstrate on the specifics of each and
the bombing
every
happened during the Blinken visit. Good. I'm sure you had some very harsh words about it.
And deploys,
I'm sure he was right in the middle of giving the Biden administration's directives to make sure that they're they're limiting civilian casualties. I'm sure that's what they were doing.
So that it can be tested. Now, if Israel claims these things, the best way for these claims to be substantiated is to provide that evidence to the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court.
I want to make something really clear.
The presumption is that these are civilian objects.
Just before we run out of time, I want to make this really clear. What you're telling us, what I'm taking away from this conversation, is that you're saying that by default, if the Israeli military, or any military for that matter,
it's a hell of a coincidence that the bad guys always seem to be hiding amongst the civilians that they also want to get rid of.
In this case here, an ambulance. By
that
default,
they openly talk about their plans to ethnically cleanse.
It's up to them to prove that it was actually not civilian, but due to circumstances, they have to bring that proof. It was actually a military target. And if they don't prove that, then it's illegal under international law. Am I right?
You are right.
Okay, thanks. Look, thanks for that short answer, actually, because we wanted to, at some point, we got to make these things simple so that we can all understand and try and compute what we're seeing.
This is one of the difficulties of dealing with law in war. Because
when have they proved it? It's a good question, Dr. Maggot. It's a great
militaries
question.
Belonging to states that are advanced themselves with advanced economies and capabilities claim that what they're targeting are legitimate military targets. Of course they're going to do so. But they're never pressed to provide evidence.
And we keep talking about international law, like with the whole West Bank, all the settlements, it's all contrary to international law. If their whole state exists in a constant violation of international law, it's an illegal criminal state.
Protected. Keep in mind, in this particular series
I understand why these conversations are important, but after a certain point, we just have to recognize that they don't care about international law. And then international law doesn't even mean anything, because when the law isn't applied to everybody, it's completely meaningless and is in fact basically an arm of Western imperialism.
To detect the paramilitary attacks of 7 October.
Hildebees, we don't need to be big legal experts to understand that, it's against international law.
The international community is right to be skeptical about these claims until such time as these.
What's their proof that these are military targets? CGI?
Should give.
You got a little CGI video clip. That's your proof. That's your proof that you got to go after these hospitals and ambulances and refugee camps and apartment complexes.
Not 100%, as demonstrated on October 7th.
Schools.
Ardi Imsais, international law professor at Queen's University
in Canada. Look, we put together this CGI video
for that context. Really useful.
Thank you.
Israel's military says that it has now surrounded Gaza City after approaching from multiple directions. It says at least 25 soldiers have been killed in battles with Palestinian fighters since Tuesday. Israeli troops have moved in from 3 positions in the north and the east. There's been heavy fighting northwest of Gaza City as Israeli forces move towards Tatra, towards the Al-Karama neighborhood. Battles also reported in Johor Adik and to the north of that area. Israeli forces have been seen on the main Salah ad-Din road. That's one of the axes we were talking about earlier that links the north of the Strip all the way down to the south. And Israeli Army and Navy have been targeting vehicles on the Al-Rashid coastal highway. Tariq Al-Bouazoum was telling us about that. That means Israel controls access to and movement along the main road connecting North Gaza to South Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel. He says he's spoken to Israeli leaders about taking concrete steps to minimize the Palestinian civilian death toll. Blinken says a humanitarian pause in the war could facilitate that, as well as a path to increase the flow of aid into Gaza.
We've provided Israel advice that only the best of friends can offer on how to minimize civilian deaths while still achieving its objectives of finding and finishing Hamas terrorists and their infrastructure of violence. Today, I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu and other senior officials about concrete steps to do that. President Biden has consistently stressed the need for Israel to operate according to international humanitarian law.
He's
I
repeatedly
also
stressed
emphasize that
when,
the protection of civilians
not publicly, of
must take
course.
place not just in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, where incitement and extremist violence against Palestinians must be stopped, and perpetrators
You're paying
held
to
accountable.
stop funding the Israeli military.
We need to substantially
Do something about it then, asshole.
and
These are your
immediately increase the
friends.
sustained flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza and getting American citizens and other foreign nationals out of Gaza. We believe that each of these efforts would be facilitated by humanitarian pauses, by arrangements on the ground that increase security for civilians and
Call
permit
off your attack
the more
dog,
effective
then.
and sustained delivery of humanitarian assistance.
We now want to listen live to the spokesperson for the Palestinian Health Ministry, who is speaking from the largest hospital in the Gaza Strip, Al-Shifa Hospital.
During these attacks, but the Red Cross told us and informed us in a very frank way that Israel is rejecting
Yeah, pause the genocide so we
any
get the
form
foreigners
of
out so they won't be
coordination
genocided as
for all
well.
the humanitarian missions.
We're urging restraint.
However,
These attacks
and
must stop.
given
Are you going to do
the
anything to make them stop?
escalating
No. We're going to ask nicely
situation
over and over and over again.
and the increase in numbers of wounded and injured, especially critically injured people that cannot be treated here in our hospitals, as I mentioned earlier. And given the increasing number and the huge number of the injured people that are arriving at the Indonesian hospital and other medical centers that are unable to absorb and treat those huge numbers, and after approving that some of the patients will be transported and transferred to Egypt, we then have decided to send those ambulance vehicles that would leave or depart from the medical complex from the south at 4 p.m. And before the vehicles departed, we have informed everyone through a press conference, and we have also been in touch with the International Council and the Red Cross and also the United Nations agencies to inform them. The whole world have watched that those vehicles departed from Al-Shifa Medical Center at 4 p.m. However, Israel and the aggression of Israel has attacked and targeted and attacked the ambulance, causing a massacre against victims, civilians, and wounded people.
Who the same people
And
that said
given
a week and a half ago that they would never
massacres
dream
and
of
the
targeting a hospital.
Israeli aggression.
You would just never dream of that.
That is using the silence of the international community as a green light to continue to commit more massacres against our people, our injured, and our paramedics and our hospitals, and also ambulance vehicles and humanitarian missions. And given this massacre, we confirm the following. First, we demand from the international community to shoulder its responsibility given those practices and aggressions being committed by Israel on a daily basis in Gaza. And that is against humanitarian law and Geneva Convention. The international community should stop those massacres that are committed against our people and our paramedics and our injured and victims. We call on everyone to help us create a humanitarian corridor to ensure the transportation of victims and patients and to allow humanitarian aids to be funneled to Gaza Strip. We also demand the Red Cross to activate the Fourth Convention of Geneva in order to protect the health facilities and facilitate the work of the paramedics and ambulance vehicles in order to evacuate and transport victims, wounded, and patients with no restrictions and no targeting. Peace be upon you.
You've just been listening to the spokesperson for the Palestinian Health Ministry. He was speaking from Al-Shifa Hospital, again, the largest hospital in the Gaza Strip. What was he talking about? Let's do a little recap here, because this was an attack that took place a little earlier today.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
That was scheduled to leave Al-Shifa Hospital at 4 p.m.
Magyar guy, thanks for the 11 months of Tier 1. I wanted to...
The medical convoy...
I appreciate that, Magyar guy. I wanted to talk to you about this whole idea that, like, the framing from the Biden administration saying we're urging them to use restraint and not targeting civilians. We're talking about this violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. It has to stop. Like, so what is being communicated to us by the Biden administration when they make this kind of thing? So first of all, number one is they're just lying and they're not doing that and they're totally okay with the violence, which is what I happen to believe. But number two is that they're so powerless that they're going to their client state that they fund, you know, to the tune of billions of dollars every year, including this new aid package now that's going to Israel. And they're saying, hey, knock it off. We demand that you do that. And once Israel's saying, no, fuck you. What are you going to do about it? And then what do they say? Oh, alrighty? And they do nothing. So, like, what do I believe? Either they're totally complicit and they're just lying, or they're so powerful that they can't even, like, get their own attack dog to stop committing these brazen assaults, brazen attacks, brazen violations of the law, and they're completely powerless to do that. And they're so, like, pathetic that when they get told to fuck themselves, they just, like, respond by doing nothing at all.
Why is this important? This speaks to one of the questions.
That's what we're supposed to believe when Anthony Blinken says this kind of thing.
Medical bodies are able to communicate with Israel.
The Geneva suggestions, that's good.
Say we have civilians leaving this area at this place. This is not a.
We gave them $14 billion yesterday. Yeah, in addition to all the billions of dollars they get every single year. People can't even say the word ceasefire. We know they're complicit. Yeah, and I know that, but it's just that's what they would like to have us believe. They're like, we're giving them all this money, but we're saying very clearly behind the scenes, you knock that off. You knock it off. You better just be targeting military targets, and you better be trying to avoid civilian casualties, and you better stop these attacks, these settler attacks on, like, armed settler terrorist attacks in the West Bank. You better stop that. And they're just saying, no. What are you going to do about it? And they're so weak and pathetic that they're like, okay, we're sorry.
They will share this evidence later. For the moment,
like, either way, either explanation is just completely indefensible.
That's where we are. This is the kind of event.
Like, if you're actually you're supposed to be the hegemon, you're supposed to be the powerful country.
Opinions on this conflict, not by any means.
And you can't say our aid that we're giving to Israel is conditional on them, like, respecting basic morality or rules. You can't even do that. You have no power. Because, of course, when you just give someone money unconditionally, then why would they listen to anything you have to say? Even if that is there any truth to that? Why would they listen? You've shown them repeatedly that, like, none of your suggestions or veiled threats are actually mean anything. Why would they listen to you? You just gave them billions of dollars completely unconditionally. They're going to listen to your suggestions now?
That's just common sense. If you kill someone, you need to show why you're killing them. Right? You can't just go around
and randomly
kill people without showing some proof that they are guilty of something. Right? And it's not just those who are injured.
Yeah, we've done nothing about these settlements for decades. Like, they know full well that we're not going to do anything. So what do our little behind-the-scenes suggestions or mean whatsoever?
All they're trying to do,
you know,
is just trying to treat their patients.
Our stern suggestions that they stop being so mean about it.
What does this really mean moving forward? Think about it, Cyril. Does this really mean that
Israel
is now going to bomb every possible ambulance because it suspects there are Hamas fighters in it, or because Hamas presumably uses ambulances? So it's going to be bombing what? More hospitals, more ambulances, more schools, more churches because there are terrorists in them, more mosques, because it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Not because it's international law, because it's common sense.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Graham, hello. Hello, Graham. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. What is up? It's me, everybody. It's Rob. How was the Gremlo stream today? I hope it was good.
And by bombing those who are ordered to move
Please smash the follow button. If you want to be part of the community, you want to join the chat.
Not just those who are
And Joe, hit him with a finger wag. That's right.
Transportation for because they cannot themselves.
They hate that. They can't stand that.
Whether on foot or in cars, are also being bombed.
That's what we saw in our Rashid Road.
Do you condemn Hamas?
This is where I have another question for you. It's on the logic of this. On its face, there's a flaw in the logic here. Israel is calling
Unfortunately.
Gazans in the north of the Gaza Strip to go south, and then in multiple instances,
we're just talking about how completely incoherent the whole Biden administration position is right now, where they're saying we're giving you this unconditional
how does that make sense?
multi-billion-dollar aid package, but behind that, we're giving them very stern warnings to knock it off and to make sure that they stop targeting civilians and that they knock it off with these armed settler terrorist attacks in the West Bank. And we're saying how completely toothless that is. They expect anyone to believe that.
It's defense minister.
That they're condemnations or their behind the scenes demands that they stop being so violent mean anything when they're just giving them completely unconditional aid for billions and billions of dollars. You better play nicely with these weapons that they're sending. Yeah, they're going to get right on that. Again, they've been with America and Canada and Israel's allies in the rules-based order have not done anything now for decades about these illegal settlements. So why would they think now that there's going to be anything that they can do that America or Canada or anyone else is going to really object to all that much? Object to the extent, because again, it's all reliant on money. It's propped up by U.S. money. It's propped up by the West. It would not. It does not have the ability to even exist, let alone wage this kind of warfare, if it's not being constantly funded by the West and armed. You know. So this whole idea that we're giving them unconditional arms and aid, but we're telling them to knock it off. They could, if they wanted them to stop being violent or stop bombing Gaza or have a ceasefire right now, they could make that happen right now. They could say the money's no more money. They're the ones holding the purse strings. They're the ones financing the whole thing. They can say at any time, no more. We're not doing this anymore if they actually cared to, but they don't.
A collective punishment.
But they don't.
What is that but a genocide against?
And if we're meant to accept the idea that the U.S. is just so weak that their own client state just completely tells them to fuck themselves when they try to give suggestions for how they should act, then that shouldn't be encouraging to anyone either.
Planning to harm, to kill.
And it's getting its citizens from the USA as well. There's fucking populations coming from there.
To punish, to take a revenge against Hamas and the entire people of Gaza. And hence, I think what it's doing now, we do not need to, explain or justify for Israel why it's doing, or even try to, look in the brain of Netanyahu, its left side and right.
When you see Walter, Rodney, and Lenin on the shelf, you know you found a channel worth following. I appreciate that, Svidler. That's right.
That it's going to do whatever it takes in order for Gaza not to breathe again.
I'm going to go to the
this is cool.
Correspondent in the occupied West Bank in just a second.
I like seeing all the activity going after the weapons manufacturers that are making weapons being sent to Israel right now. Now we have protesters at the port of Oakland blocking a ship from leaving, which is transporting U.S. arms to Israel. All kinds of really inspiring and amazing actions going on right now. Not just marching in the streets, but actually targeting the West's ability to continue resupplying Israel. Might be our last stand against global authoritarianism. It's hard. I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but I really do think a schism is forming right now, both outside the empire and inside the empire. And people around the world, and even people that are living here, are really waking up to our constant criminality, our constant flagrant criminality, and our constant violence. And like I said, we're seeing, in terms of polling numbers, we're seeing for the first time in our lifetime, like polling for people
You can count on
in
me
both Canada and the U.S.
Rob to talk you through all this.
In both Canada and the U.S. that are opposing continuing to arm Israel. That's for the first time in our lives we're seeing that. And people around the world are being exposed to the hypocrisy and the lies of our empire. Thanks a lot, Svidler, on there for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate it. Glad to have you in the community. And I do think, like, yeah, there's no putting this toothpaste back in the tube.
You need to
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Hello, Majority Report.
So then
Welcome.
I can help you.
Welcome, Majority Report.
with
Thank
the
you for the
region
raid.
In order for us
I'm
simply,
Rob. Hello, nice to
be
see you.
allies
Please
in a
smash
constructive way.
the follow
Israel
button.
says, as it said for the past 50 years. Israel
Please
says,
smash the
you
follow
can
button
express your
if you
opinion
can.
about what goes on in my
Welcome in,
neighborhood.
Raiders. Thank you.
But you have
How
no
was the
veto
Majority
over what
Report
I
stream
say
today? I
or
hope it
do
was
in
good.
Historic Palestine. America says to Israel, you have a say on what goes on in the Middle East, but you have no veto over what America needs to do in the Middle East. So there's a division of labor.
Hello, Apprentice. What's
It
up?
gets complicated, for example, when in Lebanon there are Palestinians who are not in historic Palestine. It's considered the Middle East, as, for example, in 82, Israel invaded Lebanon. The United States did not like that, at least in the beginning, right? Because that was Lebanon, that was not historic Palestine, but it was the PLO that they were attacking. So it always gets a bit tense between the United States and Israel when one says, look, we agree, you have no veto over what I do here. But the Americans are trying to say, we are trying
Just
to
one
help
sec.
you in the region. We are
Gotta
trying
get
to
a
help
pen
you
here.
execute this war in a way
Israel's
that
like a
is
rabid dog, the U.S. its
manageable
commiserating
and
master.
defendable
Well, that's what I
in
mean.
the
It's like,
international
that's the
public
analogy that I think we've been using
The
lately
Israelis
that I think is easy to understand. Sometimes people get this really twisted.
Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bashar.
America
Thank you
is
so
the
much for all
mafia
that.
boss. The rules-based order is the
as I was
mafia, and you got
saying,
junior
we do wanna
partners in
speak
that
to
all around the world,
Hamza
including
Sahoud. She
Canada,
joins us
including the
from
UK and
occupied East
Australia
Jerusalem.
and
We're still on
Germany and
what happened
France and these other
outside
countries,
Al-Shifa Hospital,
and Israel,
with Israel
and Ukraine,
acknowledging that its air force struck
and
an
you know, Israel is
ambulance.
the psychotic
more can
gangster
you
that
tell
works
us
for the
about-
mob boss.
What do we know about this, and what information are they providing?
Well, the Israeli military has taken responsibility for striking an ambulance outside of Shifa Hospital, saying that they had intelligence and that this intelligence was shared with the other agencies and entities that they work with, that there were Hamas operatives inside that ambulance who were killed. They additionally went on to say that they have more
These fucking liars.
information about
We had
how
intelligence
Hamas
there was
uses
Hamas people in the
ambulances to
ambulance. You're
transport themselves
targeting in a
and to
fucking
transport
ambulance.
weapons. But again, we have not seen this
Oh, don't worry, there was
information.
totally a
The
Hamas guy in that
Israeli military is
ambulance.
also stressing that
There's always
this
a
part
Hamas
of the
guy in the
Gaza Strip is
hospital,
a
in the
war
school,
zone. It is a battle
in the
zone,
refugee
and they're
camp, in the
calling on
apartment
civilians
complex,
to leave. But the
and the
reality
ambulance.
is on the ground, and as we've been hearing from sources in Gaza,
Absolutely
there is
disgusting.
simply no place to go. The Israeli military really absolving themselves of any responsibility when it comes to the civilian death tolls in Gaza. You have tens of thousands of people who are sheltering in hospitals, and the Israeli military is targeting those ambulances. They said they have given repeated warnings to civilians to evacuate, sending flyers, sending messages. But remember, a lot of people do not have any sort of internet or cellular connectivity to receive messages from the Israeli military. So the military saying that they are releasing flyers from the air, relying on that to absolve themselves of responsibility, is something that a lot of experts in the region are slamming. Now, the Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari speaking tonight, saying that they are coordinating everything with their allies, specifically the Americans, and that the call on civilians to go further south is something they have been echoing.
We dropped flyers, don't worry. That's the most moral army, the most moral humanitarian army. Don't worry, we dropped some flyers, so
So in the end, there really is no safe
that makes it
place
okay.
inside of Gaza.
Weasley little liars,
Hamza
it's true.
Sahoud, joining us from occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you very much for that. We can talk to
Do you still support Palestine, or have you changed mind? In my opinion, there are some nuances both sides. No, I support Palestine.
Links doctors working within Gaza. You're joining us from London.
Why would you ask me
what
that?
Your network
There's not nuances to both sides. It's actually not. You don't need to be nuanced at all.
That we've been talking about on ambulances leaving Al Shifa. Anything you can tell us about that at this hour?
I support the people that have had their land stolen, that have been being treated like second-class citizens, that have been the victims of colonialism and apartheid for the last 70 years, and the people in Gaza that have been in a concentration camp for the last 20 years. Yeah, I support those people.
The communication is extremely difficult.
I'm not going to. No, there's no nuance when there's a country with a well-funded, multi-billion-dollar army dropping bombs on a 2 million person concentration camp.
Actually, it's a very
no
close
nuance.
friend of ours who is a Gazan
You don't got to hear both sides.
States. His family, his neighbors live next to Al Shifa Hospital. He has been told from his direct
the only thing
family
that's changed is that Israel is now even more indefensible than it was previously. Yes.
By the airstrike that essentially happened at the entrance of Al Shifa on an ambulance convoy, and some of his siblings were injured as well. So that is the news we are hearing from there. We have not been able to communicate with some of the doctors at Al Shifa, like Dr. Hassan Abu Sita and others.
So you basically don't support the centrist point of view. Of course, I support the centrist point of view.
There is an escalation, and this is as
I think you need to look at all these groups like the PFLP, Hamas, Hezbollah, all these different part of the resistance axis, and then find some viewpoint that's kind of in the middle of all those.
Weeks and months and years. This is not a new
That's
situation.
my centrism.
We have seen this in every escalation, every conflict since 07-08 when Operation Castled took place after Hamas coming into power. We have seen targeting of residential civilian areas, but also healthcare facilities. And this is unacceptable.
Doctor, what next?
There's no nuance when you have white Zionists telling anti-Zionist Jews that they should have been gassed in the chambers. One side is simply evil. Like there's no
the wounded patients.
Like there's no. You can't be a progressive Zionist anymore after this. I'm sorry. I know people have tried to spend their whole lives and build up whole careers, presenting themselves like this. Oh, I'm a Zionist. I support Israel, but don't worry, I'm one of these progressive Zionists. Like I'm sorry, you can't
switch on the news.
You either support this genocide or you don't.
I mean, the reality is, and Al Shifa Hospital, bear in mind this morning, we had videos sent from doctors.
And many of us probably have people in our lives that have this kind of viewpoint that are made very uncomfortable by these kind of statements. But I'm sorry, we can't continue to
they were using their mobile
appease people that support this kind of violence.
The corridors in the operating theatres, there are women and children.
At this point, if you're still watching what's going on and you're saying, "Oh yeah, I still support this," then it's like I think there's something wrong with you.
And when the generators stop working, people don't realize, but this means essential life-saving equipment inside the hospitals, like mechanical ventilation.
No more baby talk.
Ventilators are no longer.
We're no more coddling.
What that actually practically means is
Zionism now corresponds to genocide. You either stand against apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing.
Basically, what the doctors and nurses have been doing,
or you support it.
We've again not been able to contact them frequently since this morning, but I think clearly there is. There's been an evacuation order, which frankly is fanciful.
No more goo-goo or gaga.
This size with 70,000 people sheltering inside the grounds can just get up and move in a war zone. And the Israeli military, as you said,
I think 99% of politicians support Israel, but also many want ceasefire. Speaking of U.S. politics, look what's happening on the streets.
Extremely concerned that this will be
the people don't. We're talking about the political class, the media class. The people on the streets stand with Palestine.
By the IDF to bomb Al Shifa Hospital, to bomb Al Quds Hospital. So, we keep saying keep using the word unprecedented, and it really is unprecedented. Every day there is another event which, as you rightly said, makes your eyes just wide open, and just it's frankly shocking.
I think The Apprentice, when you say stuff like that, there are innocent factions on each side, and yeah, of course, I think there's people, even people in Israel, that are innocent and that don't deserve to have violence inflicted on them. I agree with that. I'm still not going to sit here and make an equivocation between the Zionists and Hamas. One side has all the power, one side has an army, one side has full backing of the U.S. military, billions of dollars a year, and one side is nothing. You know, and Hamas is a totally, like I was saying yesterday, you don't have to agree with everything that Hamas says or does. Again, I'm a secular white person in Canada. I don't really agree with religious fundamentalism or many of the positions that they might take. At the same time, I totally recognize how Hamas is a totally understandable and logical
Yesterday, I was attempting to head from the north to the south of
result
Gaza Strip,
of these decades of occupation and apartheid.
The area where I've been living,
And I can understand why many people, many Palestinians look to them who are waging this kind of
I managed to hold my
fight
ground there for almost 3 weeks, but it was getting worse. I used
against the people that are imprisoning them and putting them in concentration camps and saying, yes, I support this.
Valley, we came under a barrage of shells from Israeli warships anchored offshore. Also, Israeli snipers were stationed.
So I'm not going to sit here and equivocate between these two things.
All the vehicles traveling on the road were riddled with shells.
Yeah, well, we've been making the Viet Cong analogy quite a lot lately on here.
Even the animal was torn
and the exact same justification that Israel uses to bomb hospitals and schools and refugee camps was the identical word-for-word copy-paste justification that the U.S. military used to drop napalm on Vietnamese villagers and shoot fishermen and farmers and women and children from helicopters and set fire and destroyed entire villages and killed 3.5 million people in Vietnam. Word for word, the exact same justification.
They were in total panic.
Oh, there's Viet Cong in the tunnels under the village. We don't know, some of these villagers are Viet Cong, or they support the Viet Cong, or they're hiding them.
On the way back, dead bodies were scattered all over the road.
Word for word, copy-paste the exact same justification.
Yesterday, many private cars and a number of ambulances were also destroyed.
Hello, Kevlar.
Horse carriage. By the time we reached the hospital, the number of victims was unbearable. Today, I'm here to check on them. Their story is now mine. All this, no doubt, leaves deep scars in our souls for years to come. I don't even know
there's a video playing right now of just like dozens of corpses on this road that I can't show.
You can count on me and have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
People love
human and professional duty.
Thank you, Kevlar Wagon. Thanks for 3 months of Tier 1. I appreciate it.
Many of the thousands of Palestinian workers that Israel has sent back to Gaza say that they were beaten and starved while in Israeli captivity. The workers had been detained ever since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. Israel also scrapped the scheme for Palestinians from Gaza to work in Israel and in the
occupied video is graphic. It's extremely horrific.
Reports.
Waiting and hoping for a glimpse of a face they haven't seen in weeks and feared they might never see again. On the other side of the crossing are some of the few Palestinians Israel allowed through its long-standing blockade of Gaza. Workers with permits to cross the fortified border and toil in low-paid jobs on the other side. Now, after weeks in Israeli prisons, they've returned into waiting arms, but with shocked accounts of their experiences.
We are workers, and I didn't know where to go. We stayed on the side of a road. The police picked us up and took us to prison. We were handcuffed and our legs tied, and people were beaten. Thank God we're okay, but I don't know what was happening outside.
You are Hamas. You are Hamas. They would hang us, leave us for 4 days with no food and no water. They would torture us at night, strip us, accusing us of being Hamas.
A homecoming of relief and tears, but uncertainty too. Captivity is over, but Gaza's Palestinians are all prisoners of a different sort. Blockaded and bombed by Israel, it might be home, but home is an economically choked and dangerous place.
We went to Israel to work and feed our kids. As if we were killers, I felt like a criminal and I've done nothing.
The work was low paid, but it was still a vital lifeline for the 18,000 Gazans issued permits. Israel's blockade has hollowed out Gaza's economy, where the UN estimates unemployment is at about 45%. Now this scheme has gone too. Israel is severing all contact with Gaza, says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, except for the bombs falling on its homes and the Israeli troops on its streets. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah group, Hassan Nasrallah, has spoken for the first time since the start of the war in Gaza. Nasrallah said that the impact of this war will not be like previous conflicts, and it will prove, in his words, to be a decisive battle.
It caused a seismic shake, an earthquake in terms of security, military, politics, diplomatic, even psychological. It has very profound strategic, existential repercussions. What's taking place in Gaza Strip today proves the stupidity and impotency of the Israelis. They are wreaking killing among civilian Palestinians in Gaza. Most of those killed are women and children. The majority of the victims.
It's not a powerful army that does this.
Ali Hashem has more on Nasrallah's speech.
It was a really interesting
from Nakura
speech.
in southern
It was good to get some analysis of it beyond
Hezbollah thinks this war is going to be
what I've been able to offer.
As is being said, that it's going to be a different war. So, given the fact that this is a different war, what Nasrallah was doing today is that he was setting the scene. He was making Hezbollah's
only the weakest prey on the weakest.
Hezbollah's
Interesting,
argument,
yeah.
putting everyone.
It's not a powerful army that just targets residential buildings and schools and hospitals and refugee camps
I hold
and little kids.
responsibility for the front in Lebanon. This front,
like Nasrallah said in that speech, anyone can do that.
However, if things are going to go out of control, if Gaza
anyone
is
with
going
weapons
to
can
fall,
just
Hamas
blow
is
up little
going to fall,
kids. It's not a
then
powerful army that
our
does
front
that.
is going to be a main front. And then he also warned that if the allies of Israel, mainly the United States, isn't going to put Israel or kind of contain Israel's response or Israel's attack, then this is going to take the whole struggle, the whole conflict into maybe a regional dimension. There are people who were anticipating Nasrallah's speech with a lot of expectations, high expectations that maybe Nasrallah is going to go for an all-out war. These people are upset currently. They think that Nasrallah's speech was upsetting, Nasrallah's speech was mainly about a rhetoric, and there was no real substance in it. This is one team. There's another team which is Nasrallah's supporter base. I mean, they are going to accept Nasrallah.
Yeah, well, Fiddler on the Roof, it's something that we've been talking about a lot. Not discussed enough how cowardly the Israeli army is. They got embarrassed when they went into Lebanon in the past. They just bombed from the outside because they can't face Hamas directly. We're seeing this contradiction, right, about what we've been told about the almighty IDF with their unique and their unique and terrifying handheld fighting skills and their incredible ability, their incredible army. They're so well funded, so well financed. And it's like this is an army of conscripts that is used to just bombing little kids and just beating and imprisoning defenseless people and keeping people in a concentration camp. And they're supposed to go in and fight a ground war against people that are defending their homes, people that have been fortifying their positions for years now. All they know how to do is shoot little kids and deliberately maim little kids and drop bombs on apartment buildings and other residential and civilian areas. That's all they know how to do.
Is not a safe place for refugees and asylum seekers, and that they try to give assistance to those who are the most vulnerable. But for the women and children here, that's just not enough.
Exploring diverse cultures.
That's why they train U.S. cops, but not U.S. military. Yeah, good point. That's sort of how the Vietnam War went as well. So they can't beat them, bomb them instead. And like I was saying, you can't win that war. When you have a determined enemy engaging in that kind of guerrilla warfare, defending their homes against an occupying, colonizing army, you can't defeat that. Time and time again, we've seen this in history. Time and time again, these kind of guerrilla armies will always win. The IDF are like those rich fail sons who shoot lions tied to the ground on safari and brag about being big game hunters. Totally, yeah, totally. core truth of fascism is claiming supremacy while being ultimate cowards. Yeah, our victims are both incredibly weak and degenerate, and they're also immensely powerful and strong.
The news and current affairs that matter to you. Al Jazeera.
Hezbollah will get involved if Israel directly targets the West Bank or if Palestinians revolt against the PA. It makes no sense for Hezbollah to get involved in a ground war in Gaza. Yeah, and as from Nasrallah's speech as well, that's kind of what he said, is like, we're already involved. We started getting involved the next day, but they're involved like in Lebanon. And he's making a direct warning to Israel and the U.S. not to get further involved in Lebanon, or it is going to draw them in even further. But no, they're not just going to join in and escalate this ground war. I don't think that was ever on the horizon.
Israeli strikes kill civilians trying to flee the violence in northern Gaza. At least 14 people, including children, are killed.
The protection of civilians.
Newspaper, this is such a stupid argument.
Gaza, but also in the West Bank, where
this is such a stupid argument. I'm sorry. I can understand wanting Gazans to be safe, but I cannot understand free Palestine. There was no period of time prior to 1948 that the Arab Palestinian population had sovereignty over what we know as Israel today. So what is there to free? So it's just they're just people that just deserve to be colonized forever? Is that what you're saying? Because they were colonized previously, they just deserve to just live that way in perpetuity?
Find the video wall. Well, it is now 1900.
Ridiculous argument.
9 p.m. in the evening in Gaza, where Israeli strikes continue to target civilians. At least 3 hospitals in the Strip have been hit, and a warning to our viewers, some of the images we're about to show.
This is just dumb, pedantic debate lord bullshit to justify ongoing ethnic cleansing and apartheid.
13 Palestinians there.
That's all it is.
Israeli strike targeted a convoy of ambulances.
There's your answer.
From Al Shifa towards the Rafah crossing.
Now
the
go
Israeli
away.
Army has confirmed its attack.
Be
saying
gone.
that the ambulance was being used by Hamas.
We have prepared hundreds of critically wounded victims in these ambulances as a step to move them towards Rafah. And here came the response.
Well, there's also been a strike in the surrounding areas of the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza. Its main generator stopped working 48 hours ago, and the hospital has also sustained damage from this latest attack. And earlier today, an Israeli assault killed at least 14 Palestinian civilians who were trying to flee Israel's war. This massacre took place, as you see, along the Al Rashid highway in Gaza that runs from the north of the Strip all the way down to the south.
Sorry, I can't look at this
This all
fucking clip.
comes as the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, makes his 3rd visit to Israel since this war began.
You couldn't answer his
He's
question.
urging
I
for
did
the
answer his
protection
question.
of Palestinians and for
That's an
Israel
answer.
to follow international law.
Saying previously because there was already
we can now speak to
colonization that
Thomas
was happening
He's the
prior to
director
1948
of
is not
UNRWA
a
in Gaza.
justification
That's
in
the
any
UN
way
Relief and Works
to say,
Agency for
so
Palestine
therefore there should be this
refugees in
system
the
of
Near East.
colonization
He
and
joins us now
apartheid
from Rafah in
in perpetuity.
southern Gaza.
That's
Thomas,
not a
I
fucking
understand
conclusion from
some
that.
72 members of your staff have been killed. I'm so sorry. 38
You know what, in
people have also
Vietnam,
died in UN
you know when
facilities,
the U.S.
and
got
I understand that
involved
you
in
were saying
Vietnam and
UNRWA
escalated
can
that
now
into
no
a conflict in
longer provide shelter and
1965,
protection to
the French had been
civilians
there
under the
previously
UN
for like
flag.
hundreds
So
of years.
It's come to this.
Well, no. Why should the Vietnamese get their own state? They're already colonized. They've only been colonized by the French for the last several centuries. They don't know how to govern themselves. They don't deserve to have freedom or autonomy or any of that.
Loved ones from the Gaza community.
What a stupid argument that is.
Tough enough to deal with.
Does that answer your fucking
But right
stupid
now,
question?
People who are sheltering under the UN flag here in Gaza are not safe. We had
Jesus.
4 incidents yesterday where people were killed and injured inside UNRWA schools, inside IDP shelters, and they should be protected under international law. But the reality is, under a UN flag, people are still being killed and injured. So it's very, very tragic here.
Thomas, I understand that UNRWA provides the coordinates of your shelters to the Israelis, right? Yet they're still being bombed. Do you get the sense that you're being targeted if the Israelis know what they're hitting?
Before the conflict, during the conflict, we're very clear with the Israelis on exactly where our facilities are. We've had about 50 facilities that have been impacted by conflict. and we've had 5 direct hits on our facilities. So, we can't be any clearer to the Israelis in terms of where our facilities are and their obligations to protect those facilities and most importantly to protect humans who are seeking shelter there. People who are
Israel
seeking
big enough
shelter.
to attract Hezbollah? Maybe, I guess.
Thomas, if
Probably not.
UN
Those are probably
shelters
just
aren't
like
safe,
weird
and
fucking
hospitals,
like
as we've seen
Destiny
today, are not
viewers
safe,
or something.
the roads that you were supposed to evacuate down are not safe. Where are people
These are
supposed to
unpaid
go?
volunteers, just Twitch debate sickos.
Look, the reality is that's the dilemma for every Gazan
I read a
right
Wikipedia
now.
article about this
When you're
last
out in
week,
the
and now I'm
community, when
an
you're speaking to
expert.
people, both in the north, as I did last week before the start of the current offensive in the north, but also people across the south.
I skimmed the
where do I
Wikipedia.
go?
Or anyway, I didn't read
Am
the
I
whole thing. I
safe?
skimmed some of it.
So the reality is we run our logistics base here. I mean, our logistics base in Rafah. We're now hosting 8,000 people who are seeking shelter here because their last hope is a UN flag.
Yeah. Well, I understand something like 600,000 people had been sheltering in UNRWA buildings since the start of this war. Can you give us a sense of the situation in them? I know you say that you can no longer necessarily provide protection, but surely some people
While I was
are
partying,
still
I was
there
owning my
because they have
craft,
nowhere
reading
else to go.
Wikipedia
What's left
articles.
of these facilities?
Jesus, what a miserable existence that is.
I'm sorry, I think we're having some audio issues. Thomas, let me ask you again. I was just wondering about the status of your facilities at the moment, because there were hundreds of thousands of people in them, and surely some of them are still there.
We had preparations, our readiness. We anticipate. We had plans to be able to host about 150,000 people in shelters across Gaza. They were designed, essentially these are schools that normally have about 1,000 students in them. We'd made plans that we could accommodate 1,500 people per shelter. We now have over 4,000 people on average in our shelters, coupled with the fact that we don't have the humanitarian supplies required to support such a large group of people. The living conditions in those shelters are dire right now. We cannot provide adequate sanitation. I was in one shelter, one of the, it's actually a training college that's now hosting 25,000 people. 600 people are using one toilet. So we cannot provide sanitation. The reality is we're providing families with 1 or 2 pieces of Arabic bread.
We simply
for
use
each
the computer to
family
mark
member.
up the size of the account.
Free Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Down with the Zionist entity, David 79 Antifada.
Who are in the south of Gaza right now.
Gald Greek, thanks for the 200
You're
Fred
talking
coin.
about supplies running out. I know we heard over a week ago that you were also running out of fuel, that at that point you might have to suspend operations. That was last Wednesday, but I've been since told that you've managed to ration in some way. What's the situation now in terms of fuel?
The situation with the fuel. Now, fuel is really essential for Gaza. I mean, particularly for hospitals and desalination plants. What we've done is we've severely restricted the amount of fuel going to some of these essential services. Just to give an example, we're filling up our cars with a quarter of a tank of fuel in an effort to preserve the fuel stocks that we have. We have been able, since our last Wednesday, secure some more fuel that was inside Gaza. But the reality on things such as
Sorry,
fuel
I lose track of what's
and wheat
on the
flour,
screen.
we're drawing on stocks that were already inside Gaza, and the current number of trucks coming in is not enough to sustain our operation, and we'll also see a collapse of other public services.
As we have indeed. Thomas, you're speaking to us right now from Rafah. Are you seeing more people coming south, trying to flee what's happening in the north? And how are they managing to get there if there isn't enough fuel?
We are anticipating at some point there will be another wave of displacement in Gaza. We were expecting, as this the military offensive in the north really kicked off, that we would see people moving south. We understand that people cannot flee from the north at the present time. If they make that decision to move south, they cannot move south of Wadi Gaza. So at this stage, we're not seeing a major flow of people coming south, but expect that at some point in the future.
Thomas White, the director of UNRWA in Gaza, thank you so much for joining us on Al Jazeera and for bearing with us through the audio issues there, Thomas. Really important to hear your voice and to understand the situation on the ground. We wish you really all the best, you and your staff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's now speak to our correspondent who's on the ground there, Tariq Abu Azoum. He is in Khan Yunis, in the southern part of the Gaza Strip for us. Tariq, for weeks now, you've been telling us that nowhere in the Strip is safe. Now, we've seen that demonstrated very clearly at Al-Shifa. I see the Health Ministry is saying that this was an evacuation convoy headed for Rafah.
An evacuation convoy. So head
yes,
south.
That's true.
They tell people to head south. They bombed the refugee camp in the north. We told everyone to head south.
In order to help
we told them to do it.
Treatment on the Egyptian side.
And then you have an evacuation convoy
largely
heading
hit by
south.
an Israeli drone, where dozens of Palestinians have been killed and dozens of others also have been wounded. At the time of the Israeli bombardment of the ambulance,
but there was a Hamas guy in the ambulance that we promised.
In front of the gates of Al-Shifa Hospital, people were overwhelmed and overcrowded as the Al-Shifa Hospital contains thousands of Palestinians who were displaced from their houses, and they hid mainly to the square of Al-Shifa Hospital.
No, they said specifically that there was a Hamas person in the ambulance. They said that very specifically.
Attacks on the territory. Now, this attack.
They admitted to bombing the ambulance convoy and said there was a Hamas guy in there.
Against the medical sector teams or even the medical teams in the territory. It has been repeated as more than 10 of medical ambulances have been targeted as they were also doing their humanitarian job. The attacks also relentlessly continues on both roads of the Gaza Strip in Rashid Road.
Head south, and there's an unknown number of Palestinians shot down like animals on the road south.
On the ground.
This is like one of the most depraved things. This is just this non-stop stream of absolute depravity.
With a very graphic aftermath.
And like we were saying, this is the schism that's happening right now. Like, for years, we've been able to kind of maintain this facade of the rules-based order and using our kind of progressive language about freedom and human rights and freedom of the press and all this stuff. And now we have our own strongest ally in the Middle East just engaging in this absolute indiscriminate brutality, open collective punishment, which they brag about, openly assassinating and murdering journalists and their families, deliberately targeting journalists' families, just engaging in the most barbaric, horrific violence that you can imagine. And like, people are not taking, like, no one around the world is ever going to take this seriously. All our rhetoric, our soaring rhetoric about human rights and the rules-based order and all this stuff, like, our Western empire is it whatever credibility that it might have had. Obviously, for people like me and you and people in this community, it didn't have credibility to begin with, but like, whatever small amount of credibility our empire still had, that it somehow respected basic human decency or morality or the rules or any of this stuff, is gone forever now, and it's never coming back.
An Israeli assault earlier today.
Whatever minor bit of credibility there once was is gone forever now. That's one thing that I think has changed permanently because of the events of the last couple of weeks.
Dr. Zulfikar Swedro was traveling on that road when the attack took place, and he tells us what.
Yeah, the hospital could have guys waving RPGs from the roof, and it's still not justified. Like all these thought experiments. Well, there's bad guys in there. Like, that doesn't mean you need to like kill women or children. Even if everything that they're saying about human shields is real, which it's not. When a bad guy, a terrorist, is using a human shield, you don't just automatically have justification to just murder the person that they're using as a human shield. That is on you at that point. That's your own lack of morality. That's your own murderous intent on display.
A horse carriage was hit. All on board were killed. Even the animal was torn to pieces.
No, I have not considered kick. I don't know. This is where the audience is, so this is where I got to stay for now.
From left to right, I thought I was dreaming. I tried to get myself together.
Most horrific violence perpetrated almost entirely on civilians ever tracked live with this much evidence and coverage. It's just like, it's shocking, isn't it? Like it's genuinely just this non-stop stream of evidence of the worst rampant criminality that you can imagine in modern times.
They were in total panic. I approached them and tried to calm them down.
You know?
I carried them from the ground and put them.
And we're going to still go around the world and try to start lecturing other countries about how they should behave, or that they should follow the rules, or that they should respect our like hegemony.
Ambulances were also destroyed.
We're really like it's not going to work anymore. Something has been fundamentally broken here.
Today I'm here to check on them. Their story is now mine.
This is why I'll never vote for Biden, and many people are saying that, and I don't think.
I don't even know their names.
That's something that they should take lightly.
Couldn't find them. I asked the medical staff who assured me that none.
How do you suggest freeing Palestine all the while removing Hamas? I'm not concerned about removing Hamas. If you want organizations like Hamas to go away, if you want people to stop joining extremist groups, then you have to end the occupation. You have to end the apartheid. That's what has to happen first. Stop the occupation. Stop keeping 2 million people in a prison camp, in a concentration camp. Stop the ethnic cleansing. And then maybe you can start thinking about, groups like Hamas and what's going to happen with them. The onus is on Israel and the Zionist entity to
the Israeli military
stop doing everything that they've been doing for the last 70 years. That has led directly to groups like Hamas forming.
To transport both themselves and weapons. However, we have not yet seen that proof. The military is also saying that they have shared this intelligence with the partners that they work with. But again, that information has not come out at this time.
Thank you, Brando, for that hilarious copy-paste. It was very, very funny and insightful, and I'm glad I took the 10 seconds to look at it.
The ambulances were targeted. The Israeli military also reiterating that this is a battle zone, this is a conflict zone, and that they are calling on civilians to travel south. But there are a few difficulties.
No, as we've been talking about,
from the Israeli military, because Palestinians inside of Gaza who have gone south.
As we've been talking about, all the decades of illegal settlements have rendered any idea of a two-state solution completely impossible.
In the southern part of the Gaza Strip,
there's no more two-state solution. It's one state.
So the reality of the situation
one state
is that there is no
with where everyone has democratic rights and everyone has human rights, and Palestinians are not second-class citizens on their own land, and people can return to their homes.
Of any responsibility, the Israeli military spokesperson speaking tonight.
And if you're that much of a racist, genocidal settler that you're worried about what's going to happen to you in that situation, well, I think you should go home. I think you should leave and go back to where you came from, because it's certainly not there.
But again, there are no safe places inside of Gaza at the moment, Nastasia.
A secular, pluralistic society is the only option now, besides partition is a shit policy. No more ethno-states. We keep talking about this, but we love, in the West, Western imperialists, we love partitioning places and creating ethno-states. That is not the solution. Just creating ethno-states for every little individual ethnicity and every little group.
Trickle of aid that trucks are bringing into Gaza. Jessica Washington.
It's not a solution.
An horrific massacre. This was the
well, what if Jews lose the majority of power in the one state with equal rights? Well, then it seems like your whole society is based on being propped up, is completely illegitimate and is propped up by violence and apartheid. If your majority is promoted entirely through apartheid and ethnic cleansing and being propped up by Western military funding, then you don't actually have a state. It's fake. You have a fake state.
More injured people arrive at already overwhelmed hospitals. There is no let-up in Israeli strikes on densely populated areas. With no fuel for his car, this Palestinian doctor rides his bike between makeshift shelters to treat his patients.
Oh, you feel unsafe in an illegal settlement? Have you tried going back to Long Island? Yeah.
One of the obstacles is the road itself.
Just go home.
Sometimes there's a bombardment and the road is damaged, so I have to carry the bicycle on my shoulders and walk some of the distance until I'm past the rubble and destruction.
Gaza's healthcare system is on the verge of collapse. No fuel and shortages of medicine and basic hospital supplies.
The entire healthcare sector in Gaza Strip is reduced to 4 hospitals. Even those 4 hospitals are under imminent threat because they're partially out of service due to lack of fuel and consequently power.
While a limited number of people have been able to leave Gaza via the Rafah crossing, others have been forced to return. Israeli authorities deported thousands of Palestinian workers who had been detained in Israel. Their work permits were revoked after Hamas launched its attack on southern Israel. The workers say they were held in harsh conditions. One man said they were treated like animals.
The police arrested workers one by
Well, you bring up the idea of women in Afghanistan. A lot of the Middle East are always suffering. Perhaps part of the reason for that is whenever secular Marxist groups arise that try to promote secularism, women's rights, education, and these values which we're supposed to care about, we arm and fund religious extremists to kill those people and create proxy wars to destroy those movements. If we wanted to protect women in those kinds of situations, perhaps we shouldn't fund extremists to destroy all these secular socialist groups that, whenever they arise, that are trying to promote women's rights. That's what the PDPA was doing in Afghanistan in the late 70s. And the United States military and the United States government funded the Mujahideen to destroy that and to lure the Soviets into a deadly quagmire there. Does that sound familiar?
In Juhur-Dik and to the north of that area, as you can see. Israeli forces have also been seen on the main Salah ad-Din road, which links the north of the Strip to the south. And the Israeli army and navy have been targeting vehicles, as we've been reporting as well, on the Al-Rashid coastal highway. Now, that means that Israel controls access to and movement along the main roads, both main roads, connecting northern and southern Gaza. Well, the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, says he's spoken to Israeli leaders about taking concrete steps to minimize the Palestinian civilian death toll. Blinken was in Israel for the 3rd time.
So full of shit. Unbelievably full of shit.
Alan Fisher reports.
After 2 visits before the ground war began, the US Secretary
Going to
of State
oversee the fucking violence that you get off on. Yeah, good to give a nice big... We're being so stern in our warnings about civilian casualties. While we go over there, we send the president and our top diplomat to go over there and give Netanyahu, the incredibly unpopular, corrupt, criminal gangster,
It's the right and lawful thing to do.
a nice big hug and kiss while he's doing it.
Failure to do so plays into the hands of Hamas and other terror groups. There will be no partners.
We're sternly telling them they need to stop doing this while offering, actually doing nothing concrete to actually make this happen.
He came looking to secure
Blinken, of course, Blinken is a Zionist. You have to. It's like mandatory to be a Zionist to get to that level of the U.S. government. Blinken and Biden are both hardcore Zionist extremists.
Flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and getting American citizens and other foreign nationals out of Gaza.
But in perhaps a sign of division between the 2 allies, the Israeli Prime
Yeah,
Minister
Netanyahu looks very pressed with all these demands for
We're continuing with all of our strength, and Israel
restraint.
is using a temporary truce that doesn't include the release of our hostages. Israel will not enable the entry of fuel into Gaza and opposes transferring money to the Strip.
Antony Blinken believes more aid will soon be heading to Gaza, but he's aware there is a
I don't know, Dead Justice. If all these conflicts do escalate into a World War III situation, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to speculate on that.
Antony Blinken was hoping that his trip would be productive, that there would be some way that they could introduce humanitarian pauses in the fighting. But what is clear is the Israeli War Cabinet have their aims and goals, and at the moment, a ceasefire of any kind is not on the agenda. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, in occupied East Jerusalem.
Well, let's bring in Marwan Bashara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst who's joining me here again in Doha. Marwan, if Israel is choosing to ignore Blinken now, just how much leverage does Washington have at the moment?
Well, apparently not much. Apparently not much. And I think they're probably justifying it to themselves by saying that Israel is in the midst of war and it's not easy to pressure those who are fighting with their feet close to the fire than us, the Americans, who are simply trying to lecture them about what's right and wrong. They might justify it to themselves that way. But the truth of the matter is that Israel is true to its nature in terms of the relationship with the United States. It will take the arms, it will take the support, but it does not want the advice. Israel for long has thought that America speaks as a country, as a superpower from 2 oceans away, and is not really close enough, is not worried enough, anxious enough as the Israelis themselves. And hence Israel needs to do what Israel needs to do, and the United States can blah, blah, blah in the background. But for the time being, Netanyahu basically told Blinken no to the humanitarian pauses, no to any kind of break, and certainly no to this issue of let's respect international law and so on and so forth, because Israel is going to fight this war the way it wants to fight this war.
Is that going to have any impact, do you think, on the way the US approaches this? Because now Blinken is on his way to Amman.
Don't get me wrong, I don't believe Blinken feels bad about it, but the flat effect he has when he regurgitates the so thoroughly delegitimized Israel talking points to the camera makes it seem like he knows he's full of shit. I think maybe on some level, yeah. I think both Blinken and Biden are aware that like their entire legacy is being completely fucked right now by this. Even when Biden was over there trying to say like, trying to deflect the blame from the hospital bombing, you could tell his heart was barely even in it too. He's just like, I can't believe they're making me do this.
Cannot simply continue to be silent as you carry the war crimes in Gaza. And I think the closer you get, like Jordan, for example, I mean, it could implode. And the king is worried. And that's why.
Well, it's not true, Dead Justice, that all we can do is sit by and comment, because Israel's war making in this case is completely subsidized by the United States and Canada.
It's humiliating to the United States of America that continues to say, look, I got Israel's back, but at the same time I have certain leverage.
That's always the part I'm wondering, what goes on in their brain when they give those statements. I wonder that too, you know. Do you know you're lying? Are you such a true believer that you just believe anything, even if you say things that are completely contradictory in the same sentence?
To speak to about a settlement. Yeah. The Israelis are so right-wing at this point.
They become more tepid about open support. They know the tide is turning, and he sees the polling numbers, which is an obsession for Biden by most accounts. But that's the thing, though. It's like, you might say they're tepid, but they're still fully supporting. They're just wrapping their full support in this kind of like hand-wringing liberal rhetoric about how we're concerned by the humanitarian crisis that has happened, you know. They're not doing anything to stop it. And yeah, they see the dropping polling numbers, and instead of doing anything about the genocide, they're like, we're going to form an exploratory committee to learn to determine the effects of Islamophobia and things like that. That's supposed to be the thing that's going to stop the bleeding from these Arab communities that are seeing this play out and being like, I will never vote for these motherfuckers again. Surely your exploratory Islamophobia committee is going to really do something about that. And making sure that you seem like you feel really bad about everything that's happening while you completely, fully fund and subsidize it and support it diplomatically.
But that works for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, now in our 4th week. If the human cost is going to continue to mount, and the Western public opinion is going to start asking questions as it is asking questions, and if the demonstrations continue to grow, and I've really seen 3 weekends of that in London, for example, it just continues to grow over 100.
You know what? I think things that happen in this chat are actually useful. You know why? Because like for a long time, people that lived in Canada or the United States were told one version of these events and were meant to implicitly support the nonstop violence and apartheid and ethnic cleansing and brutality that was going on, using these appeals to morality or human rights or the Holocaust or whatever it is.
Clearly, they have become a target.
For a long time, that's the only story that we were given. And I actually think it's important to tell the other side of that story and to debunk this nonstop bullshit that we've been fed since we were children about this.
Is doing in Gaza.
At great cost.
And encourage people to get out into the streets and start engaging in direct action to support this Palestinian cause.
Facilities, schools, and so on and so forth. These people feel like they have to, feed them, take care of them, give them shelter, and so on and so forth.
I feel less insane because of communities such as these, and I feel less insane from getting out here and talking about this with people every single day.
Are getting killed in the process.
Huge UN death toll.
Absolutely. So Israel's war,
have you seen the picture of Blinken on the plane leaving Israel that Dakadoon shared?
And genocide. At the end of the day, let's talk about it in very simple
Everything's
terms.
going great. How's the Anthony? How's the war going?
The Gaza Strip. They are ravaging the 2 million people.
How's the war
Certainly,
going?
They are targeting all United Nations facilities that support the Palestinians.
We'll leave it there for now. Marwan Bashara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst, always great
I
to
think
see
I really made an impact when I told them to stop targeting civilians. I
Still
think they
ahead for you
listened to
here
me on
Al
this one.
Jazeera. Funerals in the occupied West Bank.
I think I got through to
More
him.
Israeli raids. We'll look at what Palestinians are now
Still, I think this is performative as well, though. I think this is like, look, he feels really bad. It's also performative, you know. I feel so bad about what's happening. I'm so conflicted. Yeah, really, just the look of a man who's blown away about how great he's doing. That's right.
Hello, so here's how this story goes. Another storm system unwinds into western...
Okay, well, I guess we don't need to do the weather with Al Jazeera. The fragile above it is probably not intentional. Yeah, okay, I didn't even... I'm sorry, I wasn't even paying attention. I didn't even notice that. Fragile equipment handled with utmost care. Jesus. There's been some iconic images of Blink in the last couple of days. The one from when he was doing the conference as well, and all the Code Pink protesters were behind him holding up bloody hands. It's like an incredible image. It's an incredible photo. In fact, huge props to Code Pink and the fact that they engaged in that, because it was like, it was planned really well and went off completely perfectly. You can't expect terrorism to stop and you provide justification for it. Oh no, I'm sure the thousands of people in Gaza that have lost their entire families, that have lost their sons and daughters and mothers and fathers and cousins and nephews and nieces, I'm sure the people in Gaza now are going to go back to just being compliant, docile citizens now, and are just going to go out and hit the job market. And they're not going to spend the entire rest of their lives
of the friendship triangle,
engaging in this struggle. Globocop, thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs and for all the support. I really appreciate it. And pulling ahead on the top the top sub gifters, Globocop, thank you. I really appreciate it. What are you talking about, Dead Justice? I just talked about direct action. There's tomorrow, literally tomorrow, in DC and elsewhere throughout America and Canada is going to be the largest pro-Palestine protest in probably history that we're going to see tomorrow. I'm going to be going in Montreal. People in this community are going to be going. We looked at direct action targeting aid shipments to Israel, preventing ships from leaving. We've looked at direct action targeting weapons manufacturers that manufacture weapons that go to the Israeli army. You're literally just coming in here for the first time, never having engaged with this community whatsoever, and trying to pass all kinds of interesting judgments about what's going on, despite having no knowledge whatsoever about the kind of commentary that I do or what this community is about. Oh. We've been getting a lot of this, Ian. Just ask questions and never listen for answers. We've been getting a lot of this today. I think some of our debate lord folks on Twitch have come to join us today. Some cursed Discord has shared the link to this community. We've had a bunch of fine folks coming in, expressing their really interesting and important viewpoints. DC protest is going to be big. Already planned shutdowns of a lot of roads and universities, and said as a scare tactic they're locking buildings. Yeah, it's. I think tomorrow is going to be a historic day. Tomorrow is going to be a historic day, and I think anyone that's watching right now, anyone that's in this community or lurkers or whoever is watching, if there's an action that's going on in your community and you're physically able to go, I think you should go. You know, do we have the power to change things? Do we have the power to stop people like Anthony Blinken or Justin Trudeau or whoever from funding and supporting this madness? I don't know. We can send them a message, though. We can send them a really powerful message. And you know what? We can send a message to people in Gaza as well, that they're not alone. And that the people around the world are standing with them. Even people in the empire, even people in the belly of the beast that are standing with Gaza. We can send a message to everyone around the world right now about that. And Lodane, thanks for sharing the Ceasefire Today link that my podcast co-host Jordan Yule created, which allows anyone, you can really easily contact your representatives to urge them to support a ceasefire. Just by clicking, all the links are there on the Ceasefire Today link. Protests can tank presidential candidates historically in the U.S. And, you know, Biden is for no matter what Biden did, even if Biden did somehow come through and act like the next American FDR, which did not happen. There was a lot of talk about that in the early days of the administration. But even if he had done that, he's tied to this forever now. What's his approval rating right now? It's in the 30s. You think young people are going to continue to support the Democratic Party after this? You think Arab communities are still going to support the Democratic Party after this? I'll let Ted Cruz know. I'm sure Ted's going to get right on that. At the very least, there's something to be said for inundating these people's offices with calls, you know? This really is quite a picture. Jesus Christ. I can't even scroll my Twitter timeline because it's just nonstop, just absolute horror show. I think everyone is just mad. We're mad it keeps happening, and liberals are mad because they have to keep making excuses and justifications. Yeah, I mean, you watch this play and you just feel so helpless and powerless. And like, these are the people doing this, the ones that like we're supposed to vote as the lesser of two evils. And as we've seen, the only difference between the two is like one of them is going to subsidize and fully finance the genocide, and they're going to be happy about it, and the other side are going to feign this kind of like conflicted morality, and they're going to talk about how bad they feel about it, and they're going to talk about their behind the scenes condemnations and all the urging of restraint and all this stuff. That's the difference. That's what people are voting for. Oh, you know what? Well, like while you talk about this, Fiddler on the Roof, the polling of Arab communities for Biden is 17%, and Michigan is a huge swing state with a substantial Arab population. Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to be swayed by your new committee to study Islamophobia or whatever it is. We should talk about this though, because like we talk a lot about the entryism and progressive people running in the Democratic Party, these big liberal parties. No, I don't think the British will ever apologize for the Balfour Declaration. No, they haven't apologized for centuries of colonialism in India and anywhere else that was so exploitative and which extracted trillions of dollars of wealth and was the entire practice of colonialism, which they still brag about. So no, I'm not expecting them to apologize for anything. Why would they start doing that now? We got to look at this statement though, because this I think is like, to me at this moment, to give this kind of a statement, and we can have a lot of criticisms of people that run as progressives in the Democratic Party or whatever other big liberal party, but this is actual like bravery. This is someone who has taken that and has not had their views diluted by being in proximity to this like powerful kind of neoliberal party. I think at this moment, while this is going on, and while the entire U.S. government, with the exception of a few people, are in total lockstep about this, with the attacks that she faces for being pro-Hamas, pro-terror, or whatever, Rashida Tlaib, this is a really brave statement, I think. And like, I think things like this show that like this kind of entryism process in the Democratic Party or wherever isn't completely meaningless. Can you use entryism to really take over the levers of power of the US government and make it do good things instead of bad things? No, I don't think you can. But it can be very valuable if you stick to your principles and if you don't allow your principles to be diluted or destroyed by these monsters that you're working with. Talib, like this statement is like, to me, this is on par with like Barbara Lee in 2003 voting against the Patriot Act. That was Russ Feingold that voted against the Patriot Act. Barbara Lee voted against the authorization for military action. Was that 2001? Yeah, at a time when like that was deeply unpopular to do so, and the authorization for use of military force. Thank you for the clarification. One of the extremely brave votes in recent memory, and I think a statement like this is on par with that level of kind of bravery at this moment. So Talib says, and again, I think this is really incredible. Someone that's not backing down, that refuses to dilute the messaging, that refuses to be swayed by any of the bullshit, that completely sticks to the guns, that doesn't kind of apologize or equivocate. If you're going to run as a progressive in these big political parties, I think that's the attitude that you have to have. She says the American people do not support funding for war crimes, like the use of white phosphorus bombs, and are calling for a ceasefire. As the Israeli government carries out ethnic cleansing in Gaza, President Biden is cheering on Netanyahu, whose own citizens are protesting his refusal to support a ceasefire. We must be laser focused on saving lives no matter their face or ethnicity. The number of children killed in Gaza in just 3 weeks has surpassed the annual number of children killed across the world's conflict zones since 2019. Yet instead of helping end this violence, President Biden baselessly cast doubt on the Palestinian death toll. U.S. funding for the Israeli military with no humanitarian conditions will take us farther away from ending the violence and reaching peace. Achieving a just and lasting peace requires lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, and dismantling the dehumanizing system of apartheid. Not only do some of my colleagues want to send more weapons to carry out war crimes and violations of international law, but they want to do it by providing tax breaks to billionaires and undermining crucial investments in our communities. Instead of funding more bombs with American taxpayer dollars, our leaders should be calling for a ceasefire now before this violence claims thousands more lives. I think that's pretty remarkable. Israeli law, yeah, kind of like little Freudian slip there. So again, I've become very disillusioned with this whole idea of like running progressive people in these big bourgeois parties. I don't think that you can, even if it's possible to like take decades and decades to vote in enough people where there's enough progressives with all the roadblocks that are in the way to prevent that from happening, to fundamentally shift some of these parties or make them less imperialist or to make them support Marxism or whatever it is. I don't think it's possible. I think if it comes down to the powerful people that run these parties can just cheat, as they've shown time and time again. They're not above just cheating if their power is ever directly threatened by actual democratic participation. But I still think if people are going to do that though and be part of that system and join that party and run as members of these parties or to be part of this system, when you do this, it can really lead to remarkable things. You can still make a huge impact by doing that. And also there's people that are like, in their own communities that are trying to do what they can to try and promote positive initiatives for working people in their own states and their own communities. Like, I'm not trying to suggest that whole thing is worthless, but in terms of like fundamentally changing the Democratic Party or the political characteristics of the U.S. government, I don't think that's really possible ultimately, even if it can have real value in a case like this or in certain other cases as well. I have a question. Why do they need an extra $14 billion? Gaza's pretty much destroyed already. It's a good question. And as Nasrallah pointed out in that speech today, this is not a powerful army that like needs to run to their money mark. The moment things start getting serious, run for more aid and more money while they bomb women and kids. It's not a powerful army that needs to do this. At the very least, it's sometimes possible to gum up the works on things like this. Yeah, absolutely. So just, yeah, as much as I've become very disillusioned by that, there are people in the U.S. government that I think have done some really good things over the last couple of weeks. Cori Bush has been good. And Rashida Tlaib has been tremendous. Oh. Bernie got outflanked by Durbin in the Senate. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you have Durbin calling for a ceasefire before Bernie Sanders. That's really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, it's not a powerful army that needs an extra what is it, $12 billion? $14 billion? They need an extra while they're in the process of bombing a civilian population, a captive population in a open air prison camp, killing women and kids, and you need an extra $14 billion while you're doing that. You know? That's not a powerful army. I'm not going like right this very moment. I do have to get going soon. I got to pick up my kid from school soon. It's been a long week. It's been a long couple of weeks. I'm going to stick around for another 5-10 minutes or so. But I think that's going to do it for my coverage of this this week. The most delightful thing that I've seen this week? God, that's a good question. Jesus, my timeline, there's a video of like piles of dead children. Like it's the most horrendous thing I've ever fucking seen. How can anyone look at that and support it? This is kind of delightful. Is it the most delightful thing that I've seen this week? I don't know, but here's a positive story that we can leave with. Ottawa's Victims of Communism Monument was supposed to be unveiled today in a public ceremony, but plans for that were scrapped after Parliament inadvertently honored a veteran of the SS. This ugly dog shit monument. Like literally yet another fascist monument in Canada. And honestly, I hope this monument never stops being vandalized. Not that I would ever support anyone doing anything illegal, but like if someone did, you know, throw paint at this, spray paint it, do other things, I would think it was funny. I don't encourage anyone from this community to do that, nor would I ever suggest that would be a good thing to do, but if it were to happen, I would think it would be funny. Very funny how many victims of communism are accidentally SS. It's a good point. And there's actual names that are part of this monument, exactly like that Yaroslav Hunka guy, that are being honored on this monument. Former fascists. The primary victims of communism. Yeah, the protesters and shipyard workers in Oakland stopping the boat this morning. That was very cool. Sean Fain calling for a possible general strike on May Day 28. That would be pretty exciting. The union leadership right now is showing the way. Sean Fain is showing the way right now. Delivering big results to auto workers, but linking the struggle of working people together in a really militant way. I love how on Twitter your chats just pop right up there. Okay, here's your delightful thing, okay? Here's a delightful thing for you. A man playing flute while his raven sings along with him.
Va bene? Via. Vai, Omar. Va bene? Via.
One more time.
Vai, Omar. Va bene? Via.
There you go. That's what I got for you. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Love your show, Rob. Less than 3.
Hey, Chewy, thank you very much. Thank you for the 7 months tier 1. Thank you for everyone who's supported the show today and this week. I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Whoever was the absolutely incredibly generous Anon gifter that gifted 20 subs earlier, that was very, very kind. I hope using the test alert was satisfactory. It didn't trigger the alert because it was anonymous. I hope the test alert was satisfactory. I'm genuinely not trying to pull one over on anyone with that. Can you play that Raven for another hour or two? No, I can't, but I'll put the link in the chat if you want to look at the guy playing flute with his Raven as much as you want. Hamas NGOs secretly supporting Twitch streamers. And I'm not going to condemn. It's because they see that I don't condemn. They're saying this guy doesn't condemn. Get the subs flowing. Yeah. I think that'll do it. I think that'll do it for the show this week. La 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 la. If you can, make it out to a protest tomorrow. Try to make it out to a protest tomorrow. If there's one in your neighborhood. If you go out, post some pictures in the Discord server. We can share all our pictures and images and experiences tomorrow in the Discord server.
Palestine will prevail.
You know, consent, Van, it's an interesting question. Like, oh, should you not bring a phone? Should you not, like, take pictures? Like, I've seen people kind of saying different things about that. I don't know. I think it's important for propaganda purposes to, like, show people that there's thousands, or as the case of what might be tomorrow, ultimately millions of people around the world that are protesting. Like, there's value in that. I will let other people just determine their own levels of OPSEC. What's the argument against bringing a phone? I guess, well, people are concerned that people could be identified being at these protests, you know. There's other things, like if you get arrested. Also. Anyway, thanks for watching this week, folks. Thanks for supporting me and the show and the community. I appreciate it a lot. I will be back on Monday. Give my regards to David Tovarich. See you tomorrow.